To order. Welcome, everybody. This is the Holyoke City Council's Finance Subcommittee. My name is Joe McGivern. I chair the committee. Members present this evening, to my far right is Councilor Juan Anderson Burkos. To my next right is Councilor Peter Tallman. Sitting down to my left is Councilor Kevin Jordan. We have a fifth member who is present, but I believe he just stepped out for a minute, Councilor Will Plowell. Other city councilor members are not present as of yet, but we are expecting a number of city councilors. We are live access channel through Holyoke Media. We are live being streamed, and we are on Zoom being recorded. This meeting is not hybrid this evening. Here's Councilor Plowell. So we will just be a normal motions as accordingly to what is required, which is mostly simple motions. To the members of the committee and to the public and to our invited guests, I don't have to tell anyone on the city council that we, with that new mayor who is present this evening, we're given a lot of tasks to complete before the end of this year. So we're going to get to a very long agenda in this fine evening as quickly as we can. The first 7 items, there are questions to be asked, there are answers to be given. I just asked members of the committee and members of the council that we do it as concise and quickly as possible, leaving time to get to 2 transfers for the sewers and a supplemental budget, which is also on the agenda near the end. With that in mind, the chair will entertain a motion on item number 1.
Motion to take item number 1 off the table for discussion.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to take item 1 off the table. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? So moved. Item 1 is introduced under Councilor McGee's name. A design feasibility appropriation to comply with the Mass Building MSBA invitation into an accelerated program known as the ARP to be specifically established for the scope of work required to replace windows, exterior doors at McMahon, Donahue, Lawrence Schools, and boilers at Dean. Budgeted design feasibility, total appropriation is $275,000, with what we are looking at an 80% reimbursement under an ARP from the MSBA. Net cost to the city is estimated at $55,000. We have with us representing the Holyoke Public Schools, our superintendent, Anthony Soto, and Whitney Anderson, who is, I believe, about to lead us through this. Gentlemen, if you'd like to come in. I'm not sure if anybody online is here with the schools, but you certainly are welcome. Mickey Boo, I see you now from the Holyoke Public Schools. Welcome, Mickey. Gentlemen, thank you. Not new to all, but it is actually this type of ARP with MSBA is something that's new to a number of city councilors. So I do ask that you give a good presentation and explanation, and then we can get right to questions and answers.
Absolutely. We will attempt to be concise and brief. On March of this year, the council was approached, and a statement of interest after approval of that entering into that process was issued to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to participate in the Accelerated Repair Program, which is a unique opportunity that they separate into different classifications for different features of the buildings. Those would be roofs, windows and doors, and boilers. And we have participated with the council's approval and had many successful projects. Most recently in 2019 with windows and doors and boilers, and just this year, 2022, with partial roofing replacements at 3 schools. So the invitation now, as Chairman McGivern has read, is in regards to the upcoming work for window and door replacements, exterior door replacements at 3 schools, and boilers at Dean Tech. So this is an 80% reimbursement of the costs involved, netting an approximate 20% contribution by the city of Holyoke. So we've been invited into that process on October 26th, just 2 weeks ago, and that's very exciting. In the meantime, since that announcement has been made, the MSBA has actually paused the program for the upcoming year for internal purposes of audit, apparently for allocation and designation of future projects. According to, they're looking at the process and procedures of how those are done. It's an internal audit within the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, so that does not affect this current opportunity for the city of Holyoke. So it's a great opportunity. It's 80% of the cost of these efforts, and something we have successfully done just 3 years ago. So I would strongly recommend that we would consider this, and this initial phase establishes the scope and feasibility for the projects that have been appealed for. And at that point and at that time, then there will be an estimate of cost established for the entire program, and following the constraints of the project that actually establish the parameters. Some of the application considerations that we initially filed under, for instance, the windows and doors, had a 30-year time span. When we made the application and they saw the number of other communities that appealed for that purpose in the Commonwealth, 400 and some odd districts have availability to take advantage of this program. They raised the effective age of the windows and doors for the facility of which was chosen to be replaced to 35 years. So we're going to have to look, we're very close on one of the buildings and two of the others are fine, and the boilers are okay. I do think they qualify, and I would strongly recommend that we would consider proceeding ahead with this.
Thank you. Mr. Soto?
I could be added to the list of speakers.
I just want to thank you guys for the partnership. The city council has always been graceful in funding these projects, and just speak to how important, how great these projects are in terms of windows, and windows at Lawrence, especially the windows are original. I remember when I was in Lawrence School, like, it still has the same windows. They're real foggy, gray, it just real tired and depressing. You put new windows in our schools, it really has a huge impact on natural lighting in the classroom, and just feeling like, despite being an old building, when you do replace windows in a school, it just has such a tremendous impact. We just did it at Sullivan in 2019. We did it at Morgan and Kelly, and the staff and the students just really appreciate when that work is done, because you could feel it immediately. So thank you.
And Mayor, and I'd like to also recognize Mayor Garcia is with us this evening, and I'm not assuming, I know that this would not be in front of us without your approval. And we also have our city treasurer, Rory Casey, with us this evening. Tonight, we're not asking to be passing a bond, but to declare, or I should say maybe accept the invitation and allow the schools to go forward.
Accept the invitation and fund $275,000, of which the city's share would be $55,000, for the purposes of establishing design feasibility, which would set the scope and an intense scrutiny of the actual characteristics of the project, the specifics that would establish a budget that would then be brought forward for future consideration.
Okay. That's
$275,000.
The reason I asked it the way I did was, Mayor, where's the $275,000 coming from? Want to join us? We also have our city auditor here, Tanya Dojic. Welcome, Tanya.
So at this time, there isn't any, we don't have anything in front of you to tell you where it's coming from. I think this is just in the process of the intent, but we don't have anything at this time.
Well, the options would be bonding, some type of transfer. Whitney, you've walked us through this many times, and I'm sure Rory's familiar with it. I know Tanya is that, we do have to put the money up or commit to the money one way or the other.
Yes,
And
to
then
proceed.
the MSBA, as the money is expended, will refund the city.
Yes.
Which is a good thing. That's not the problem.
Absolutely.
But the mayor has to choose if it's going to be a bond, his checkbook, or some other way. Yeah.
We'll come up with a plan.
Okay. So tonight, or what we're asking the city council, unless something is put in front of us for next Tuesday, is to go forward with the project.
Yes.
It's a commitment, but there's still going to be another vote if we don't get the bond in front of us for next Tuesday.
Yes.
Is that okay?
We'll have to proceed according to the process that's put forward.
Okay. Tanya, did I say anything wrong? Okay. Rory? Councilor Jordan?
Okay, that wasn't my first question, but I guess I'll just stay with that since we're on the topic. How is it that we can fund or approve a request of this nature without an identified funding source in place? It's saying, here's an IOU note, and we'll get back to you? How do we do that? We have no, we're just creating a liability for 275, assuming they're good for their word, and we only pay 55 without an identified. Typically, when we have a grant and a match, they come in hand with either a transfer request with the identified source of funding.
It's, I'll ask, if I can answer that, because Councilor Jordan is a longtime member of the city council, has
Not my first
returned.
rodeo.
And we've done a number of these ARPs, and that's why I've been saying ARPs. That is a different formula than what the MSBA does with the building projects themselves. It's a different percentage than what they do with the building projects. And usually the MSBA wants a commitment from the legislative body, the mayor, and the city.
Which is what we
that
voted
they want to
earlier.
go forward with a project such like that.
Yep.
And then the MSBA considers it. In the meantime, scope of services, I don't know if you're doing an RFP or how you plan to do that, but the
The designers are pre-selected by the MSBA
designers are pre-selected, which is okay. So we're going to go with the designers
and the OPM
and the what?
and the project managers.
And the project manager.
Yep.
Okay. And then, that's why I brought it to the point, Councilor Jordan, and you I think, said the same thing, is we do need a funding source to be put in front of us. Because we can't vote on something that's not in front of us, but I think we can safely vote that this is a good thing to go forward with, knowing that it's going to take an appropriation vote down the road.
You can't go forward without an identified appropriation. You can't create an encumbrance. I'll defer to the auditor if she's reviewed this legally, but I don't believe you're allowed to create an encumbrance of the city without
I don't think
an
we're creating
approved
an
mechanism.
encumbrance. I think we're creating an intention to go forward and letting the MSBA know that.
What is this exactly? This is saying that we're agreeing to accept this and commit to paying $55,000 by our vote.
This is a request.
This is written by, I don't
No,
know
I-
if it's written by
Or
Councilor
it's
McMahon
actually a
or-
consideration.
Or written by the auditor, but maybe we can have the auditor speak, but this
Well-
was submitted under,
Let-
Councilor McGee's name for the mayor. And Tanya, would you like to answer
Well,
Councilor
hold,
Jordan's question?
let me get my full question out, however. When we had this earlier this year, it was simply a statement of interest. That's
That's
our
correct.
application to them. We would like you to approve us for this. No problem, okay? They could
Yes.
say yes, they could say no. They've now said yes. Now this says we accept and agree to pay.
We'd like to take the first step.
Understood.
Yes.
But this is saying by us committing to this, there's signatures on a page of an agreement that says that we agree to do this and pay this money. Correct?
We would encumber the money. That's right.
Correct. So that's my point.
Yes.
We encumber the money with, and my question to the auditor is, can you encumber money of the city without an identified funding source to pay it?
So, no, you can't, and this would have to come back before you as a vote for a bond or an appropriation prior to us committing to anything.
Okay. So just before we sign this and hand it to anybody, as the chairman alluded to, we need phase two, which is come in with whatever source the mayor chooses to pick. Just laying that out. Okay, perfect. So we're on the same page with that. Now, I wanted to go to question two, which is, what are we kicking around for ideas to identify as the source? Because we're a little tight on money. Is there something, I know you guys maybe you've got some money from ARPA or different monies, things are going kind of good for the schools right now, you're getting a lot of state and federal money. If I'm understanding something on the agenda here, somebody's giving you $1 million too, an anonymous donor, a benefactor, I don't know, Warren Buffett maybe wrote us a check or something, but do we have that 55 grand somewhere?
It's not something that can come out of the school department's budget. The net school spending laws don't allow these big projects to. Typically, in the past, this was funded through like a short-term ban, which would eventually turn into, the larger project would be a bond, but it's not something that the school department can pay for.
I've heard that before, Mr. Receiver, and my question on that is, you made it pretty clear, and others have, your predecessors before you have said that you would give us up to $500,000 to $1 million to fund a new school. So using that same logic, can't you fund $55,000 from your budget? Because you've said you've already commit $500,000 to $1 million to fund a capital project.
Yeah, that would be, the mechanism for doing that would be through savings from consolidating our schools when we get new middle schools. That was pretty clear in the letter that we can do this because we are going to be saving some funding in resources, and we reached out to the commissioner to change our admin agreement with the city.
Yep.
And that was one of the methods that we would have been contributing to that, but that's separate from this.
No, understood.
We didn't get the school, so we haven't seen the savings.
No doubt it's separate, but the point that I'm making is it's not that, as you first alluded, that it's illegal. It's just that you're saying that you are going to identify savings for the purposes of funding something you want to fund. This, on the other hand, you could fund it, you choose not to fund it.
Not what I'm saying.
Okay, then what is the difference between saying the school department can give us $500,000 to $1 million to build a school, but it can't give us money to do this?
The
What
difference
legal
is we haven't-
prohibition is there?
We haven't realized the savings yet, A.
Okay.
And then B, we haven't changed our admin agreement with the city. So the thought process behind that is that in the future, when we are saving money on
Energy.
on energy and
Yep.
consolidation of our portfolio, we can then turn to the city, and there is an admin agreement between
Okay.
the city and the school department.
And you negotiate
which
that with the mayor?
We negotiate that, that
Okay.
gets signed every year.
Yep.
And essentially what the commissioner had agreed to is to change the methodology of that admin agreement. Right now, it's like a portion of the Treasury Department salary, a portion of the procurement office, and, a certain dollar amount for maintenance of the fields.
Yep.
So what we're saying is, like, when we're saving money, we'd be in a position to take a look at that agreement and go to a different model, which would increase the amount of money that the school department is paying for administrative services rendered by the city.
Okay.
That was one mechanism of it, yeah.
So I don't know, will it be through this feasibility study that you will identify the savings that will come from new windows and doors and energy efficiency, that once you figure out what that number is, you could share some of that to help us cover the $55,000 that's here? Say you say, well, over 10 years or whatever number of years, we're going to save this much on energy. You could help us to pay the $55,000, because things are tight over here, and normally I wouldn't ask you guys, but things are kind of going well for you right now financially in your budget from these extras from the state, and it would be a nice gesture, because on our side of the ledger, it's pretty tight over here, and 55 is still 55 grand. So if there is identified savings, like the school project, it would be appreciated on this. So when you have those kind of conversations annually with the mayor, I think that would be helpful to us. My third question and final question is more a Whitney question, and that is, don't you marvel at the fact that this isn't actually buying a door? This isn't even buying a window. This is buying an estimate to buy windows and doors. That, I marvel that and I guess this doesn't occur in the private sector, this is only in the public sector, but we're actually spending $275,000 to get somebody to tell us what kind of door and window should go up. Like in the real world, no one would, or you buy a window for your house, you don't pay $200, even a prorated fraction of that, to find out, hey, I want to replace my front windows. Okay. How much is the estimate? Well, it's $2,000 just to tell you how much it costs to replace your front window. Or if you were in a building of a business, they don't spend this kind of money to, like, why is this so expensive just to get the estimate to build this? It seems like it's so, this is what's costing the drive of the cost of government so high.
Yeah.
the aggregate value of the real estate that you're referring to is probably over $250 million. So what you're assembling now is a professional estimate involving great specifics. It involves environmental or hazardous concerns that may be evident within the structures. It involves a complete reconciliation of start to finish of the entire scope of the project to make sure that there are no unforeseen attributes that would come out later to adversely affect your appropriation and cost more. And it brings together a very concise estimate over thousands of different windows and assemblies that need to be put together. So it's a lot different than a homeowner would face with somebody coming up to give them an estimate or something like that. These are very complicated structures as far as the technical details.
It's a door and window.
Yeah, but you do it 1,000 times over, you could miss some. So what we do is we attempt to bring licensed professionals who have stamp certification, and there's a protocol from the state that requires us in order to participate on it as a.
And I appreciate that. I agree with you.
Yes.
You are required to do all these things.
That's right.
I am simply
We don't make the rules.
Correct. And I am supportive of this.
Sure.
My only point is to just point out to the listening audience
Mm-hmm.
that thinks that we're actually doing a project on doors and windows. This doesn't buy us any doors and windows.
Correct.
This simply buys us what it would even cost to do doors and windows. And that I just think it's appalling, and I'm making more of a comment at this point as a taxpayer, that it's appalling to even find out what a window cost or what a door cost. And this is why your taxes are so high in-state, Massachusetts income tax, your property taxes, all your taxes in this state, because they create these kind of crazy rules that you can't just replace a door or replace a window. We're not replacing the building, okay? You're taking a window out and you're putting in another window, all right? You're taking out a door and putting in another door. And to even find out just what that cost, you got to pay almost $300,000.
Now, these
So
costs.
that's marveling to me.
Yeah,
So and again, these are the rules you just have to play with. So
Well,
I
and what happens here is that this initial foray into this endeavor is foundational. So once these aspects are established, typified, specified, and quantified, and financially accounted for, that is the basis of a strong project. So you're building on something here by this appropriation in order to use it as a springboard to complete the rest of the work, should you decide to pursue it.
Yeah. I wonder what it would cost to do this in Florida or some other state, because it's just remarkable to me. The cost to even fix our buildings, to do the actual work is probably going to be in the millions. Lord only knows what that's going to cost.
Well, if
But,
you were going to entertain it as a private citizen, owning a facilities such as these,
Yeah.
you would have to inquire from an architect and engage their services. That does not happen on a pro bono basis. That would be something that you would call them up and you would ask to come out and look at your facility, and you would expect to pay them. So this is quite similar.
No,
It
it's
is oh, you don't? No, it's not?
No, it's not.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Superintendent?
If I may, I just since we're letting the public know about taxes, you may or may not know that the MSBA, where this funding comes from, is from sales tax. So like a penny of all of your sales tax is every transaction, a penny of that goes into this MSBA fund, and then it gets distributed to the state.
Great, thank you.
Whitney Dean School was built in the 1980s.
1987 was the design work, and it was first occupied in 1989.
Needs a new boiler.
Needs 2 new boilers.
Donahue School built in the 70s. or
73.
80s. 73.
Yeah,
McMahon School in the 60s.
61,
Lawrence School, neither one of us were alive.
1930.
My mom taught there. My sister taught there.
Yeah.
You know?
Good structures, all,
Students that go to these schools are Hoyok students.
yes, they are.
Okay, Hoyok families.
Yep.
Need doors, need windows, need boilers.
They do.
Hey, thank you to the MSBA. My vote would be to vote in favor of accepting this, asking the mayor and the help of the auditor to put something in front of us that would be an appropriation vote.
I'll make a motion that it be adopted,
No
Motion
second.
made second to adopt,
pending the obvious.
pending the appropriation, which goes without saying, but Counselor Jordan is right. The appropriation vote does have to take place, and this is not an appropriation vote, although it's a step beyond the intent vote, which does make sense. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
Thank you for
Gentlemen,
the
thank you.
discussion and
Take
your
care.
consideration.
Have a
Have a
good
good
evening.
night. Motion to take item number 2 off the table for discussion.
So moved.
Motion made second to take item number 2 off the table. If there's no discussion, all those in favor? Any opposed? So moved. Item 2 is introduced under my name for the mayor, that thereby and hereby is appropriated by transfer in fiscal 2023, $75,000. This would be from our newly established capital stabilization fund into the Council on Aging capital outlay stabilization. Thank you. Sorry. I got to note that our Council on Aging Director will be here at 6:45. It's 6:49, and Nueve is with us, correct? Hi, welcome. Under discussion, would you like, and Mayor, you're always welcome to hop in on this as far as using capital stabilization. But Nueve, would you walk us through what's being proposed with the $75,000?
Sure. I mean, it's a little honestly over my head because it has to do with the mechanicals of the building, but we have 18 heat pumps that heat and cool the senior center. And the heat pumps themselves, the mechanical aspects are fine. But what needs to be replaced is the control. Initially what had happened, and I'm not sure if it was a cost savings at the time, but they put in third-party controls and software, which now are no longer working well, and some of them not at all. And so those need to be replaced, and you can no longer source them. So S&E is proposing putting in their own controllers with their own programming, with the idea that this no longer is something that becomes obsolete so quickly. They're going to do all of them at the same time, which is significant savings because one at a time is a cost of about $6,000. And so we will get all 18 for the $75,000.
Thank you. Any questions for Neve?
I'm obviously very supportive of this, and I appreciate them maintaining the building. Neve, can you refresh our memory? How old is the senior center now? What are we, about 10 years maybe?
We will be 10 years as of December of this year.
Do I dare ask the question, is it odd that a brand-new building, that these controllers would already be shot after 10 years? Or is this sort of, it's something that kind of goes after this period of time? Or is this kind of unusual, if you know?
No, I do. I think we are in, a period of planned obsolescence these days. So
Yeah,
none of
that's
these
a good,
things,
yeah.
Seriously, none of these things last longer than about 10 years. What we would be gaining by going with S&E's proprietary controls is they are essentially, they're taking that middle person out, so we will have more longevity with this purchase than we did with that initial third-party software.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you, Neve. We appreciate it. I'll make a motion to approve it, Mr. Chairman.
Neve, just real quick, who would be doing the work and who would be overseeing it?
So it's S&E Building Systems. We've had a relationship with them since the building opened. They do oversee all of the control systems. Cody oversees the mechanical, and so they kind of work together. So I imagine this work will be done with the two of them together.
Okay. And Cody, and what was the first?
S&E Building Systems.
Can you spell that for me? I'm not catching it.
Yeah, it's S as in Sam, N as in Nancy, E as in Edward, Building Systems.
Just the way you said it.
S&E.
It's okay.
Thank you. Any further discussion? The chair recognizes the motion of Councilor Jordan that we adopt and recommend the full city council.
A second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? So moved. Neve, thank you. Appreciate it. And haven't quite got to that point of the senior center building, but I'll be there shortly, my wife tells me.
We'll look forward to it.
Bingo on Fridays. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Motion to take number 3 off the table?
A second.
Motion made and seconded to take item 3 off the table. Is there any discussion? Introduced under my name for the mayor that there being hereby is appropriate by transfer $80,000 from capital stabilization into the capital outlay account for the Board of Health. Motion to take off the table. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? So moved. Sean? Nope. That's not Sean.
You got taller.
I take it we're pinch hitting, or I shouldn't say pinch hitting. You're probably a step ahead of Sean on this one. A little bit. Welcome. And could you just, I apologize, will you give us your full name?
Sure. Eric Velez.
Thank you, Eric. And I just couldn't get that last name in my mind to kick
No
out.
worries. No worries. Yeah.
Would you walk us through it's coming from capital stabilization. The mayor is here. And if the mayor is willing, always welcome to speak, but can you walk us through what the proposal is here for the 80,000?
So the proposal, So the proposal is going to be for the purchase and setup of a new or a animal control vehicle that would help greatly, I think, immensely, the city of Holyoke and my department in general, and accommodating everything that my work has to do, and that's basically the gist of this 80,000. I want to thank first off the committee and the mayor for making this happen.
Councilor Jordan. Mayor, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Mayor. No, I can wait. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I just?
Yeah, please. You're always welcome.
We like to hear facts first, you know?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. That's a standing invitation. Yeah.
Yeah, I put this request in because the alleyway across the office, right here on Dwight.
On Dwight.
The alleyway, I noticed Eric picking up a dead animal and throwing it back in the vehicle. When I saw Eric, I said, Eric, what vehicle are you throwing that animal in? He was like, oh, that's my car. And so, that led to more discussions about the work that he's been doing around the city as our animal control officer. We do have a contract with TJO, but they don't necessarily go around picking up skunks or
They do not.
or hit and runs with certain other animals and whatnot, cats.
Correct.
Situation. So I figured I thought it'd be appropriate to include an animal control officer vehicle, so he's not putting these animals in his personal vehicle. That's where this is coming from.
Thank you. And before we go to Councilor Jordan, which we will right after this,
Sure.
there are a lot of people out here listening to us that maybe don't know what an animal control officer does, even though we do. If you could just quickly walk through your duties.
Wow. Well, I mean, unfortunately, in this line of work, we wear many hats. So anything from live animals to wildlife to deceased animals at times, many times, we sort of take care of. Of course, I'm here to promote happy and healthy lifestyles for folks and their animals and try to give them the best resources I can. If I can't myself, then I'll have links to TJ O'Connor and other services, other shelters, other hospitals in the area that would be able to assist in the needs that they're asking for when it comes to their animals. So yeah, it's just a lot of different things, a lot of different animals. It's fun. It's fun. I've been doing this for 18 years now. It's exciting. I've got your good days, your bad days, your sad days, your happy days. It's just everything all in one. I'm just having this.
And I know you get your share of dead skunks and everything in the middle of the road and all that stuff, but I do work in Holyoke District Court, as the mayor knows. And one day I had some of my fellow workers looking out the window across at the City Hall Annex, third floor, Board of Health.
Yes.
And someone said to me, what is that moving in the window? And I looked in the sunlight and I said, I don't know. As I looked at a boa constrictor in a little bit of a glass container. This is before your time, Eric.
Yep.
And there was a boa constrictor in the City Hall annex, just kind of enjoying the sunlight, that was taken on a raid, which the people who were picked up in the raid were in the courtroom that day being indicted. And I was laughing as their pet boa constrictor was over next door.
So with that story being said, I think it adds with what we're asking for, it adds a level of professionalism when we go to these, say drug raids, say routine calls. It adds a level of professionalism, and also with this vehicle being marked and having the lights, also creates an added safety for myself that sometimes I need. If you're out there at night and I've only got a black truck, which you all know, and some flashers on, people just think, oh, it's a broken down car, not thinking that I'm going to step out in front and pick up this deceased animal. So also, not to mention, it facilitates the transportation of day-to-day work. It facilitates the transportation of all these animals, live or dead, and in a safe, manageable environment. MHQ, which I think I've presented a quote from them, also has a contract with the state, which they've also already worked with a number of police and city vehicles. So they know how to set up this particular car more so than I know how to set up my own vehicle, but it's just not as appropriate as it should be. The cleaning is a little harder to do in my vehicle than it is in a vehicle that's certainly already made to be just wiped down, bleached, and cleaned up for the next one. So there's less likely of cross-contamination between animals, live and dead. Unfortunately, I've got to put them in the same area. So now I'm looking at, is this animal possibly sick, and can it affect the next one? So I think this vehicle will add a big step forward towards the Animal Control Department here in Holyoke.
Thank you, and thank Councilor Giannini for his patience.
By all means. Eric, first of all, I just
Yes,
want to
sir.
say thank you for all your great work for the city for a long, long time. It's really, really appreciated. And
Appreciate it. Thank you.
this is a no-brainer to me. I'm glad the mayor actually brought this forward. I got to be honest, I never even realized that this is, we didn't even have something like this. I did realize that TJO has vehicles and they're doing their thing in support of us, but yeah, this is something long overdue. You definitely need to have the tools to do your work, and this makes perfect sense to me. So, and again, it's like you stated, the professionalism you present at, whether it's for good or for bad or for whatever, but it's also getting the presence out there that, we support, because I'm a big animal person myself and have been a big supporter for a long time of TJO from its very beginnings when we had to spend some serious dough. I take a lot of pride on the fact that I was one of the original supervisors when we built the place on Cottage Street umpteen years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's a tremendous facility. It actually, we took some lemons and made lemonade out of it, because when we lost the other animal shelter, when they built the women's prison, that was the state committed to give us a facility because we had to tear down the old one. Yeah. And that's how we got Cottage Street, and the state helped us and the cities chipped in and everything. So, and obviously it's a beautiful, beautiful facility. And so you really need to have this vehicle. So this is great. And what would be helpful just for our own knowledge of your work is maybe some statistics, maybe once a year, how many animals you pick up and this and that type of thing, just so we can be more educated on your important work, because pets and animals and all this is super important to a lot of residents, what you do. So,
Would you like to know how many skunks I pick up?
Sure, you want to put that in
You're
the
welcome to
report?
come smell my car right now. It's unfortunately.
I think there's a quarterly report you have to produce.
TJO, they put
I'm
it.
sorry?
Per MGL, is there a quarterly report or?
Yes, there is a quarterly report. They just recently switched over directors. So we just had our first, due to COVID, we haven't had anything much of meetings in quite a while. But there are quarterly reports that are sent over from the director. Today we had our first meeting since 2019, and she was a little taken back about the quarterly reports and such. She didn't really know about them, so we haven't really been receiving them since Pam Peebles was out. But we should be receiving them, and absolutely, if you need anything, I can send them to
even
for someone.
If it's no major burden to you, administratively, just share with us different statistics and things so we can stay, we read that stuff. I read the minutes like the other members do. We try to keep tabs on all these different things, and I think it would be helpful for the council to know all the good work you're doing periodically, maybe
It's
once or twice a year,
Absolutely. I can absolutely get that done for you.
Can you tell us a little bit about the vehicle you're going to get? What's going to be the features? How did you settle on what? Hopefully you're getting what you need.
Sure, absolutely. I've had a number of conversations with, as you know, Marcotte had their price and such, and their their prices and what they were going to give me as far as the toolbox and the tunnel and such. And they gave me a little price, a price of I think somewhere around 65. So it's coming much lower than expected 80. Then I went ahead and spoke with some of the officers, Officer Gino, and Diamari, right? And he said, well, why don't you talk to the folks at MHQ who service all our vehicles, who do all our vehicles. As far as setting them up, they could set you up with an actual canine vehicle where you can put, it's sort of a flat floor. You can put a number of kennels in there. You could put some extra cages in there. And if you don't need them, you fold them down and you kind of can clean it up that way. Their numbers actually came up better with the safety lights and such that I think I would need sitting on the side of the road so I don't turn into pancake like whatever it is that I'm picking up. And that's actually looking at the numbers, it's about 8,000 less.
Okay.
With what
you really need.
what we like to say, all the bells and whistles and what we really need. So all of these figures are not coming close to the 80, but I'll figure out a way to use it if you.
Feel free to save us a buck if you can. But
right.
That's okay.
But as long as if it can go to the vehicle, to equipment that I'm going to need on the road and such, I
probably only going to get one every
absolutely
20
appreciate
years,
it.
so.
Absolutely appreciate it.
Great.
Councilor Anderson Burgos.
By chance, do you know if TJO offers these services as well?
Offer these services for
Picking up dead animals and so on?
They do not.
They do not.
They do not. No, because it's a simple matter of cross-contaminating. So when they're putting everything that's live in there, you really, even if you bag or double bag, you really do not want, you're still cross-contaminating animals. And they just had recently in Springfield a very large parvo outbreak. You don't want to necessarily contribute to that. Here in Holyoke, we had Pan-Luke outbreak. So I was constantly, anything I picked up, clean, wipe it down, bleach, and then be able to pick up the next one. So it's a little tougher having just one kennel and a nylon seat, I guess.
Yeah, the reason why I'm asking is I wanted to see if you had reached out to maybe another municipality who takes care of their own services, what kind of vehicles that they're using.
Right. So I've spoken with West Springfield. I've spoken with Springfield. I've spoken with Agawam. I've spoken with some of the folks in Chicopee. With Chicho also covers Chicopee. They have a specific person who covers dead animals. In some cities, it's just DPW who does deceased animals, while animal control does live animals. In the city of Holyoke, I have to double up. So I need to figure out a way to keep the live ones in the cabin. And as these pickup trucks are set up, I can put the deceased and or other animals in the bed of the truck. Say it's a bear or deer or even a skunk. I can put it in the bed of the truck and not worry about cross-contaminating any of the animals that I put on the inside.
Yeah, so the reason I was asking, I just wanted to make sure that before you make a huge purchase like this, that you did your homework, which I believe you did, and you make sure that the vehicle that the city will be taking in is equipped for any kind of scenario.
And this is the reason why I spoke with the folks at MHQ who equip the canine vehicles here for the city. So they're well aware of how to separate. They're well aware of they're experting in vehicle equipment for animal control and police and ambulance, emergency, public safety setup vehicles. So they gave me the best sort of setup with as much safety as I can possibly ask for, and then obviously I'll worry about being able to put my catch poles and put my bedding and my nets and everything else and stored in neat and safer places as opposed to where they are now, where they're crossing in the back of my head. So sometimes I get knocked. It happens.
Well, thank you so much for everything. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Eric, Councilor Tomlin.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just real briefly, Eric, thanks for the work you do, and through the chair to Councilor Jordan. Kevin, I think we've been getting reports from TJO a few years ago. We had him in here, is it Pam Peebles?
Pam Peebles was here, I think.
A couple times. And she did a report.
Here.
We asked for a report. I think we got them, in 2018, 2019. It was like semi-annual report, which is really helpful to see the amount of work that gets done and the amount of, animals, not just on the street, live or dead animals, but sometimes there's a fire or there's an incident with, animals at somebody's house that are, loose or whatever. So I was surprised too. I mean, I've seen you in your black truck, and I think this is definitely a good investment by the mayor and by the capital outlay to fit you to a vehicle that can utilize the work you do on a daily basis.
And there have been times where also, TJO is not necessarily readily available. So if I pick up an animal, I don't want to have it sitting in my back seat of my car. I'd rather be able to keep it somewhere safe, and if I have to drive it down to Springfield myself, I'll do that.
Yeah, and
As
also if you could, I think that's a great idea. Even just every 6 months, maybe get a report to see, the work that's getting done, what the animals are picked up, because we have a big area, and I think the public doesn't really not aware of the work you do on a daily basis.
And that's important because there are many times where I pull up to a house, and this is what I mean about transparency and professionalism. There are many times where I pull up to the house where they don't even know who I am until I get out of my car and address it. It could be, 8 o'clock in the morning, it could be 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Now that it's darker, no one really sees me. Right. Whereas this one would be obviously have the features of a city vehicle.
Right, I think that's great. That's, and especially with people that are not aware of the way things are today, to see you have a sign or the lights or whatever on there, it's very helpful for the community.
Correct.
Yeah.
Councilor Jordan?
Eric, do you have a uniform?
I do have a uniform, and that's what makes me stand out when I get out of my vehicle, because I have a uniform.
So when you walk up to somebody's house, you're in uniform, so they know you're not just, who's this guy?
I'm not just Joe Schmo, but as I'm pulling up to someone's house.
Right. No, we'll get you the vehicle too, but I'm just saying, okay.
Yeah, it's Jose.
Eric, just real quick, first of all, I'm in favor of this too, and I, like Councilor Jordan and others, I was very surprised. This is the first vehicle, and commend the mayor that the animal control officer has gotten. It's an incredible, important service. Do you, and I don't want to go out and say you're on call, but do you still answer calls when you can over the weekend and at night?
Yeah, at nights, dispatch tends to sort of At least recently, they haven't bothered me so much on a Friday night, but they'll call me Saturday morning if something happens.
Yeah.
They'll call me on.
Case
so
by
I'll
case,
go
I
out.
understand.
Yeah, so I'll go out. But there have been times where, as you know, you have an accident on 202 and there's a deer involved or whatnot, and
Yeah.
they'll call me in for it.
Okay, so I hope MHQ is going to give you a spotlight for going out at night on that car. If
It's
not,
for what I've seen, it's got a lot of lights. I don't think I'm gonna have too much of a problem.
okay, but a spotlight when you go by Councilor Jordane's house to shine it in the window,
Shine the light on them.
My dogs are all good. We're good over here.
But no, it's just a thought. I mean, you know what you need. I just thought they might. I think because of the nature of your calls and duty, that this vehicle would be parked at your house at night.
No, actually, the vehicle right now, as it stands, is parked here either at the police department. My vehicle is parked either at the police department, and I take my dad's car home or whatnot.
Well, I'm looking for a safe spot, I guess is what I'm saying.
Correct. So I'll park it at the police department and or like the garage.
You
next-
do know
at the
police
garage
department is
next
not
door.
always safe for vehicles. I see Chief Pratt online. Sometimes you might want to find a safer
I think
spot than
that's-
your police vehicles.
Just don't keep them in the garage.
And gas is at the
it is-
DPW.
I'm sorry.
You get your gas, you gas it up at the DPW.
Right now, the gas I've received a gas stipend of I think it's $235 a month that covers the gas and
But
maintenance.
that's for your own vehicle.
Well, that's what they've provided for me since.
No, when you get the new vehicle.
Oh, when they get the new, I don't know. I don't
haven't
know
got
how
that far yet.
We haven't got that far. Yeah, I don't know if.
That's next week's
Well,
conference.
I am jumping ahead. Maybe I'll just stop there and cut my losses. But
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying is with the city vehicle, it should be gassed at the DPW. And I see well, we'll stop there too about what's parked next to the Hoyok merry-go-round.
Either in front of the merry-go-round or the garage
Right.
next to the courthouse.
Right. I think we might want to find a safer location. Plus, the merry-go-round needs that parking spot. I'll stop there. I'll cut my losses. Is there any other discussion?
No, motion to approve, Mr.
A
Chairman.
second.
Motion made and second to approve. Recommend this to the full city council next Tuesday. Eric, thank you on behalf of all of us and all of our constituents. A great job.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All those in favor? Any opposed? So moved.
Motion to take item number 4 off the table?
Second.
Motion made and second. We take item number 4 off the table. Introduced under my name for the mayor that the amount of $9,705 be authorized from the IT Department's professional consulting for the year 20. I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead here and I went too fast. This is an appropriation in the year 2023 for services rendered in 2022. This is the second time we've taken this up. I did speak to the auditor today. There is still some research being done. We're not questioning, but we just want as much answers as possible about the final invoice, I guess, from Wally Computers. As we know, Wally Computers is no longer working for the city. Nothing wrong with their work. They did a great job for the police department and the city over the years they were with us. There's just been a change in vendor. However, this request to pay for a prior year bill is important, but the auditors asked that we give her a little bit more time to get the answers to make sure that the bill's been vetted. Not the auditor's fault or problem. It's actually under purchasing agent, which our purchasing agent has left. So we were just looking for some answers on this invoice.
You want us to table it, Mr. Chairman?
I don't see any answers coming, so yes.
Okay, motion to table.
Motion made and second to remain on the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
Motion to take up item 5.
Second.
Motion made and second to take up item number 5, and I believe item 6 is the match to it
Okay.
as a package.
So take up
Package.
5 and 6 as a package?
Motion made and second to take 5 and 6 as a package. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Under my name for the mayor, Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53A, the City Council accepts the provisions of the Patrick Leahy Bulletproof Vest Partnership, known as the BVP, $26,400. There is a 50% match. Grant authorizes the establishment of a fund and or method appropriate for the accounting of the receipts, expenditures, and all resources associated with said grant. Item 6 is a request for transfer from personnel equipment, $13,200, into the match for the Bulletproof Vest Grant, we just brought on board brought into the agenda itself of $13,000. Both items signed off by the mayor. We have with us our chief of police, David Pratt, Mayor Garcia, and our auditor. And I believe Chief Pratt, are you still online?
There he is.
Welcome, David.
Yeah, I'm
Thank
here,
you.
Joe. I'm here.
Okay, I'm not sure, the chief, are you taking the lead, the mayor?
I'll always defer to the mayor first.
I think he's looking for your help.
Yeah, well, so hold on, I'm
My
just,
help
Hang on 1 second.
1 sec
Mayor?
for a moment. I just wanted to clarify because, and Chief, help me out here for a moment. There's a transfer request, I think, in this budget, the supplemental budget. Instead, we took care of it there by raising it in one of the line items. But just wanted, Chief, if you could just clarify for me which line item, again, we previously discussed that this funding was coming out of?
So the funding to match the grant will come out of personnel equipment.
Personnel equipment, all right, give me 1 sec.
The object code is 55860.
If you look on the, about
Yeah.
3/4 of the way up on page 2 of section 12 of our packets, you'll see
think-
there is 13,200 in the supplemental. Is this a duplicate?
Give me 1 sec. 32 personnel equipment with 18 outfit new recruits and 13, yes, so there's,
Yes.
I take the transfer off the table. I mean, however you want, it's the same difference. It's raised and appropriated on the, sorry,
No.
She's agnostic on it,
what
Said
happened?
no.
either way.
Just a little clarification from the auditor.
So, yes, your supplemental budget is supporting this transfer.
Oh, okay.
But what you need to do is you need to take it from the general fund and put it into the grant so that the match is in the grant fund.
Okay.
So we actually
okay.
need both.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
So we're doing two in the same evening.
Oh, all right.
That's why we pay her the big bucks, you know.
That's it.
That's okay. Don't. Thank you, Mayor. And Chief, can you walk us through the transfer is the request for transfer is important with the supplemental budget. So, but can you walk us through what we're getting out of the grant and where it's coming from?
Okay, so, yeah, the grant is going to cover the cost of well, I should say half the cost of the 22 vests. That's for existing vests that are expiring for current officers as well as for new officers coming in for a total of 22 vests. The grant is 26.4 and our match is half of that 13.2.
In just the breakdown between existing and new officers, how many existing vests are expiring?
12.
And I'm sorry, can you just give us the, what is the Patrick Leahy Bulletproof Vest Partnership?
Is it named for the senator or our police sergeant?
Well, it's for, yeah, it's not after our police lieutenant, actually.
Oh, Lieutenant. Oh,
Sergeant Leahy's been taking credit for this for a while now, you know.
Yeah, maybe, I'm sure he would hope it was named after him, but that's not the case. It is named after the senator.
Senator, yeah, Vermont.
Any questions from the committee?
well, go ahead. I'll
Counselor
defer to
Tallman.
Counselor Tallman.
Yeah, thanks, Chief, for coming down. A very important purchase here. When will the vest come in, and how long does each vest last, approximately?
They're 5 years. Okay. 5 years they last until they need to be replaced. And what was the other? How much they cost?
No, when would they come in? When would you get them? Time frame about?
Say by January, probably we'll have them.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Jordan?
Chief, what happens to the ones that expire and you can't use them anymore? Do you salvage them? Do you sell them? Auction? What happens to the old ones? Or can you get a credit from the manufacturer? Or what happens?
They send them over to the probation department.
Yeah. We can use them. We can use them for training. They would be fine to be used, especially when you're using simunition training or paintball type stuff. You could do that with them. I would say that, again, that's the manufacturer telling you they're up in 5 years. If we needed to use one, that is still better than nothing.
Right.
Say maybe I don't know, maybe somebody on a ride along, if we don't have an extra vest, but we'd have one of those, or we needed to put something on someone until we get the new ones in. If there was a delay, say, one of those is still better than not having one. But the goal is to try to stay ahead of those expiration dates, obviously, and keep outfitting at least our frontline officers with those.
Just as a suggestion to the mayor and kind of on a broader point, some communities do a surplus property auction in their communities. Maybe, when we think of items like this or, equipment or vehicles or different things that they don't want anymore, sometimes they do have either a town auction or like a sale. I see the treasurer's hands up. Yeah, Rory?
Could be, I think selling those again could be a liability, especially with an expired tag on them.
I didn't either.
And then, I think you're limited as to who you can sell those to. It's not like you can just sell them to, or would want to sell them to just anybody. Again, the city selling those with an expired tag on them, I don't think that would be, defer to the law department on that, but I don't think they would like that.
Okay. Well, again, assuming everything's legal and we're not jeopardizing anything, I just think of, if there's a way that the city could perhaps consider recouping some of our money to buy new equipment and things like that. Perhaps somebody, a hunter or a sportsman or something would find a use for something like this. I have no idea. Nothing I would be interested in personally, but, whatever we can recoup for $1, that's always helpful if it's something we can consider. But okay, well, thank you, Chief. Obviously, very supportive of this, and want to keep our officers safe.
And before I get in trouble, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the Office of the Commissioner of Probation, gives all probation officers new vests every 5 years. So,
that's good.
You got to be careful. I got to remember which hat I'm wearing.
Yeah, there you go.
I make a motion to approve the transfer.
Motion and second to approve the transfer and to accept the grant as read and as necessary, the expenditure of the said grant. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
Motion to take item number 7 off the table?
7.
Motion made and seconded to take item 7 off the table. All those in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? This is a capital stabilization request of transfer for $241,000 to police capital outlay. Chief, could you walk us through this? This is the
Vehicles.
vehicles, the police cruisers, I believe.
Yep. So what this is we're going to purchase, if this transfer goes through, we're going to purchase 6 cruisers that are currently at MHQ for purchase with our name on them. If we don't purchase these ones, then we won't be able to order any until probably August of next year, possibly September, which means we wouldn't be able to take ownership of those until probably the summer of '24. These would be probably with us by spring time of '23, or at worst case scenario by the summer of '23, and will give us those cars. That's with warranty. So the current fleet we have is under warranty, and this fleet would be under warranty, which would really upgrade our fleet and put us in a position where a lot of our vehicles that we're using the most are going to be under warranty. So I would anticipate some huge cost savings in our motor vehicle, R&M motor vehicle line item for repairs, because a lot of these, they'll be covered up to 150,000 miles. So that's the goal here. If we don't go with this path, then we're looking at August of 24. By then, those cars will have gone up probably about 50,000 for 6 cars. So there's also a cost savings by getting out in front of it a little bit here. So that was the discussions with the mayor, and that's why he was proposing to do it this way.
Chief, I want to be the devil's advocate. Could you just walk us through what the fleet is, if you have it in front of you, the vehicles and their years? How many vehicles and,
I don't, to be honest with you, I don't have those in front of me. So when we talk about these cars, these are specifically the line cars, the 6 line cars we try to replace that we use every day, 24/7. We have, I'm going to guesstimate, and I don't have the actual numbers in front of me, probably 45 to 50 cars overall. But those include detective bureau cars, admin cars, cars that aren't used every day, 24/7, but still can put a lot of miles on them. But this is specifically for, the goal here is to bring in line cars to replace the current line cars, which will still be under warranty as well, which I can then move into some of those secondary roles. When I say we have 6 line cars, we really have probably 9 if you count supervisors, and we actually use 7 cars at times. So it helps us keep that everyday 24/7 fleet operating. It'll also give us very decent backup cars, because I don't care how great or how new a car is, it's going to break down, it's going to get in an accident. There's going to be reasons to take it offline, and to have a car that we can put back online that's still under warranty is going to allow us to keep that fleet operating at the level it really should be operating at.
besides that, they're at MHQ, is it the same vehicle that you've been purchasing?
Well, the last round we purchased from Marcotte, they're Ford Explorers, yes. Marcotte is no longer doing the state contract. So MHQ has been awarded the state contract, and that's where you have to buy the cars from now. There's just one place.
Take it away from our local people,
Yeah, I don't know why the state did that. I can't speak for them, but that's just what they're doing. It's one place. If you want Fords, it's one place. If you buy Chevys, it's one place. If you buy Dodges, it's one place. There's only one place for each vehicle.
I could share with you my opinion of why they're doing it, but then I'd be in trouble. Councilor Jordan.
Yeah. Chief, I just want to make sure I understand the request. Is this 6 cars total, or is this 6 cars one year, 6 cars another, and this is the first down payment?
It will be 6 cars total. This is the down payment, which is going to get us those cars locked in, the second payment coming in next year's budget.
So 6 cars cost $451,000?
What number did you just say?
451.
I think it's might even be higher than that.
Oh, Lord.
What's the number? 241. It's not an exact even number here of what we have. I have the first down payment. I don't have the second payment with me, but I could get it for you. But you're close. You're right in that But that's not just the car. That's the car, all the equipment, and the extended warranty is all factored into that number. And the computer, so it's the computers as well. Everything to have that car up and running, radios, computers, the mounts, lights, siren, all that.
So 75,000 a vehicle then, I just did the math on it. That sounds about
You're
right?
probably right about there.
Yeah.
And it's gonna only be going up. And that's what, we're trying to, save the city money by grabbing these now, which I think is a dual saving on the front end and not paying those increases that are gonna come in 23 and 24. And also having more cars that we are utilizing that are under warranty. So when they break, we're not paying for those repairs.
So how does all of this, I had asked recently for copies and the auditor was very gracious to get it to me, the police car leasing program information. And how does all of this jive with the car leasing program?
So basically what it's doing is it's getting us ahead of that program a little. In my mind, to simplify it, that was great for getting us back on track, but it's basically keeping us a good year behind schedule. If you just look at where we're currently at, if this isn't factored in, we won't be able to even approach the subject of getting new cars until August of 23, which means we would be making a payment in July and not receiving those cars until probably July or August of 24.
Now,
these cars are current. These are 22s. These are what they call leftovers, but they're new. There's no miles on them. They're brand new cars that we basically have an opportunity to purchase at this time. If we don't, they will obviously sell them to someone else.
Okay. That doesn't really answer my question, though, is I understood, and the chairman, please correct me if I'm wrong, but in my hiatus from the council, there was a decision that was made that we were going to do a leasing program for police cars, that was going to be the new way that we brought in cars. Back in the good old days, we would buy so many a year, and which kind of looks like what this looks like, and although not this expensive. And we would buy so many per year, and that's how we've been kind of running Holyoke for umpteen years. Now, I was educated, and that's why I asked for the contracts, because it was something new to bring myself up to speed, and I was told of all the merits. Well, you got this leasing program, and you don't get hit with all these costs, and da-da-da-da-da, and there's a fixed expense, and we put it, and it's budgeted in the budget, and all this, and I believe there was a policy decision that this was the way to go. Now, it seems like we're doing either switching gears or we're doing two things simultaneously, where we have the leasing program and now we're also outright purchasing 6 additional cars outside of the leasing program. So my question is, why are we doing that, and why aren't we just leasing more cars if we need more cars?
Well, just so we're clear, the lease is not a lease like you're thinking, like you lease a car when you go down to Marquette Ford. The lease is basically, a lack of a better way of describing it, it's an upfront, almost loan. We own these vehicles, even though we call it a police leasing program. The police, once the 2 years, we own the vehicles once we make the payment. Once we make the first payment, we own the vehicles. They're not, like, we don't give them back there's no end of a lease like you go when you go get a car.
Well, you can buy a car
purchasing them. This
afterwards.
is just another mechanism of purchasing. So the cars that are leased vehicles is just a financing option, I guess is that a better way to describe it?
Understood.
We are still purchasing.
Right. In a standard leasing program, at the end of your lease, you're typically you're going to purchase with the residual value, Not, by the way, on a personal level, I'm not that big a fan of leasing cars because I don't think they're a great investment. But nevertheless, how they, as I understand them, work is you choose to lease a vehicle, you pay a fixed payment for X period of time, and then at the end, you either can turn the vehicle back or pay the residual value amount. And then purchase the vehicle. So I was under the presumption that because we were keeping the vehicles after the 2 years, we were simply agreeing to automatically pay the residual value of the vehicles. So what I'm wondering is, why aren't we just continuing with that? What's really going on? I just want to understand. It seems like we're not doing that again. We're doing something else. Why, for example,
Basically,
why aren't we?
We are still doing that. What this payment is doing is getting us, for lack of a better word, ahead of it, so that we get these vehicles now and not in 2 years.
I see.
So this payment is going
in that
to
same program.
coincide with the program we are using. We will still be having that line item in next year's budget, which will make that payment. And that will be the second payment. Going forward, we're going to be ahead. So if you want to jump ahead 3 years, we'll be in this, ideally we want to be in the position where right now, the money we have in the lease line item in July is so we can order those vehicles so they would be here. That's what we're going to put ourselves in the position to do going forward. So going forward, we're never going to have to do this again. We're back on that lease plan, and the money that's allocated in year one is going to be able to have the vehicles. Like right now, if we had done this earlier, we would already have that money because of July, and then we would be earmarking the cruisers that are there. What's happening now is we don't have the money allocated. I can't earmark those cars because I don't have that first payment. So now I have to wait a whole nother year just to order them, and then it's another year after that before they come in.
Understood. But in a leasing, I believe the way it was supposed to be, and I think didn't we make an appropriation for car leasing for this year in the budget already?
This year's that's already gone. That money paid the second payment of the last cars that came in.
So we didn't budget enough.
So I
We
think
budgeted enough.
For that, but not for this. Okay, go
Correct.
ahead. All right.
just to clarify, Chief, the current lease, well, quote unquote lease that we're in and we raise and appropriate in our budget in this current fiscal year, is that for the final payment of that lease period?
Correct.
Okay.
For the cars we already have.
All right. So, Counselor, what we budgeted, which is, I don't know, somewhere in here, police,
41.
$205,000. That's the
Yep.
final payment of our existing lease with the fleet we have now. What he has currently at MHQ are 6 cruisers that if we don't get them now, they're going to sell them to somebody else. When we put in our order for our next lease, quote unquote, arrangement, it wouldn't be until 2 years from now that we'll get the vehicle. So I think there's a little bit of an overlap happening.
So essentially, when you were doing the budget, you didn't anticipate getting these additional 6 cars, so we didn't budget enough to do the old lease and this. If you had, then you would have budgeted both of these amounts to cover the leases. But now that this has come up after,
Well, I'm happy we're not budgeting for it and that we have an alternative revenue source to tap into so that we don't have to raise through taxation for this. But coming next year's budget for payment
Right.
number 2,
right,
we'll have to sit down and figure out if we want to raise and appropriate, which we can because we've been doing it to pay that second payment, or some other alternative means through an eligible revenue source.
okay.
And
I think I have my arms around it.
if we could just let the city
Yeah.
treasurer, Rory, I'm not sure if that's on yet.
Yeah, no, and to your point,
Hey.
Counselor.
Okay,
Yep,
thank you.
Sorry, normally I project.
Oh, well, it's
For the home audience.
It's the home audience.
You're right, and I don't want to muddy the waters with anything that was just said. The word lease, I think we should no longer use, right?
Right.
Because I walked into the same confusion.
Right, right.
But what I did pull up, just to speak to some of the other items, because the chief had sent this over for our review, but it's not just the vehicles, as he mentioned. It's also the paint, medical turnout gear,
Yeah, the
rear
full-
windows,
full thing,
computers,
yeah.
the whole thing. And we're actually, by doing this now, going to be receiving a $50,000 discount. So not only would we have to wait an additional 12 to 18 months before we received them,
Right.
because of the vehicles we'd be getting with that second order, it would cost the city more than what this proposal is right now. So just so you guys have all that information.
Yeah, that's very helpful. I
well.
think what threw me off, Rory and Mayor and Chief, was my understanding is we were taking a systematic approach by doing this. We'll call it a financing arrangement, not quite a lease, because our intent is always to own. And that we had an amount earmarked for this year, for this, to fund the program. What's happened along the way is we're doing something a little earlier than next year's budget, so now we don't have enough to do this new lease, essentially, right? You had enough to fund the projected regular payment, but now we're doing something advanced than next year. So now it makes sense. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Councilor Anderson, excuse me, Juan, 1 second. I keep forgetting to do this. We've been joined in the chambers by Councilor Izzy Rivera. We've been joined for some time now online by Councilor Jose Maldonado Velez and Councilor Tessa Murphy Ramboletti. Welcome to everybody. Just wanted everybody to know that those city councilors are present. Councilor Anderson Burgos.
Chief Pratt, always good to see you. Just a question. What warranty, if any, does these vehicles come with? Without the extended warranty, what warranty does it, right off the bat, comes with?
Mileage, it's like 36,000, just like any other car you'd buy.
36,000 miles?
36, yeah, like 3 years, 36,000, but you'd be on our cars. That's probably a year.
I thought it was about 2 shifts.
And how much? So what is this extended warranty costing? It's all part. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be difficult. I just want to see if I can find a savings somewhere, because working for businesses where they always said, you got to get the extended warranty, you got to get the extended warranty. And I could not count on both hands how many times people would have saved more money by not getting the extended warranty. It's just a gimmick, in my own opinion, and professional opinion, if that.
Well, when you talk about, I think what's important is when you talk about police cars and warranties, it's not like your family car. Your family car that you drive here or there, maybe you put 10 or 12,000 miles a year. We probably do 35,000 miles a year, right? That's 3 years in a normal car. And these cars run 24/7 with multiple drivers. As you know, everybody drives the car a little differently, a little rougher, a little softer, whatever the case may be. The question you asked about the cost, it's a 4-year, 150,000 mile warranty.
You said 4 year?
4-year, 150,000 miles. So whichever comes first. Just like a 3-year, 36,000. If you do the 36,000 in 2 years, then the warranty's up. But I think that the 4-year 150 is really good, because that's kind of what we do. The cost is about $3,300, $3,378.75 is what I have here.
So $33.75 you said? Times 6?
$78.75.
Times 6, right?
Times 6, correct. And what I can tell you is that on our cars, I could probably bring our police mechanic in here. He can go a lot into more detail of what breaks often and what cost savings there are, but we anticipate having those warranties is going to save us way more than that. Like, I know what you're talking about. You know, you buy a TV and they say, "Oh, get a warranty," and it's not even worth it. It's cheaper to buy a new TV.
I'm talking
That's
about
not the case.
I'm talking about my car as well, Chief Pratt. I'm talking about my vehicle as well. I never got a warranty on it, and I had a 2009 that lasted me till 2021 and never broke. So
Yeah, but you don't drive that car 24
Oh,
hours
it was-
a day, 7 days a week.
it was 114,000 miles by the time I traded it in.
And how many years was that?
30, yeah, quite a
Okay,
few
we
years.
We probably get to that same number of miles in 3 years.
So
See what I'm saying?
yeah, and I do.
Multiple drivers and multiple, like no stopping, 24/7, every day, 24/7.
Well, that's normal tear and wear.
No.
Right?
Not, did you drive your car 24 hours a day, 7 days a week?
No, that's no. I'm just trying to
what I'm
save
saying.
money here. I'm trying to save the
that's what
city
I'm telling
money.
you, that this cost of $3,300, like when we blow one engine or whatever.
I mean,
you know,
if-
I can't get into individual parts.
If we blow an engine, we don't want to buy those cars, right? Like no company's gonna make it.
No, I'm saying to you, we get a new engine. We get a new, and it doesn't cost us anything
Right.
under this warranty. And there's other parts that, you know, if I wish I had Officer Biamari here or the police mechanic, that they could go into all the things that they constantly have sent out to be fixed that are going to be covered under warranty. They have assured me that this 3,300, so we'll blow that out of the water with cost savings, just based on their prior history of fixing the cars.
Do you have a record of how we've utilized the warranty in the past?
The cars that we just currently got are the only ones that have had this extended warranty. This would only be the second group.
Gotcha.
I think our guys are pretty convinced that this warranty is definitely worth it, because you got to understand too that when something goes on one of these cars, yes, we have a police mechanic, but some of the things it doesn't matter. He can't fix it. It has to go back to the dealer to get fixed, or we have to send it out. Sometimes it's such a big job that we can't tie the mechanic up fixing that one car, or he's not going to be able to fix the other 10 cars that are waiting in line to get fixed. So it's actually more cost efficient to send it out and get it fixed than it is to have him fix it. And under these warranties, now we will send them out, which is going to free him up more time to fix the cars that aren't under warranty, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. It does. This is not me giving you a hard time. This is me trying to find ways to save money.
I don't take it that way.
Yeah,
I don't
thank
take it
you.
that way at all.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All good questions, Councilman. No.
Yeah.
Any further discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve the transfer of $241,000.
Second.
Motion made second to approve the transfer of $241,000. Recommend that to the full city council. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
Take item number 8 off the table.
Second.
Motion made second to take item number 8 off the table. This is a requested transfer of $250,000. Would come from line items in the police department. $15,000 lieutenant, $35,000 sergeant, and $200,000 patrolman. The request is to go into overtime. The mayor has signed off, and the chief of the police department has put the request in. Under discussion, Chief Pratt, Mayor Garcia. Chief, I know you're prepared to give us the reasons for overtime cost and where we are with our payroll, our annual pay average. Sorry. Chief
Okay,
Pratt.
so, yeah, definitely. We put this transfer together, sticking with, the plan that we sort of worked with last year as far as coming back and trying to stay on point. One of the large reasons for our overtime as it currently stands is we've had a sort of a spike in injured on duties. When I looked at those numbers, I really didn't need to look. I knew it was happening, but when I looked deeper into it, in July, when we started the fiscal year, we had 7 officers that were currently on injured on duty status through, and it's kind of gone up each month, spiking in October at 12 and 13 officers injured on duty. Also involved in that, as well as we've had a few people using the family medical leave, which doesn't come out of injured on duty or anywhere else, and they use their own time on that. But it's still another body off the street, which has to be replaced. Couple that with the higher number of officers out injured. And we also currently have a little bit of shortage in personnel, but we have people that are in the academy, 2 that are graduating tonight. So that'll be a good thing. But all those coupled together have created, and we did have some surge events that I know everyone's aware of that cost us about $20,000. So all those things considered, I looked at everything. I also tried to put together enough. I think if there's a positive, although our overtime seems to be higher, up in the 40,000 a pay period, our last couple of pay periods have dipped and have brought that average down. The last couple of pay periods came in like 32 and 33. So, and our injured on duties have come back. I should quantify that, some of our injured on duties are a little more long-term and some are shorter term. People get hurt and they're out for a week or 2 and then they come back. It just seems that we had this kind of constant, one would come back and one would go out, or 2 would go out and then 1 would come back. So it did spike. I think you can see that from the transfers. I know you all get the transfers on injured on duty. And what I noticed there was the transfers back in July were like in the 18,000 range and they peaked in October at 38,000. So you can see the more people out equates to more overtime. It also, coincided with obviously July, August is a heavy vacation schedule time. So it's kind of like we went through vacation, and before we could even come out of that, where we usually see some dips, we started to have a lot of injured on duty. So, and a couple of family medical leaves as well. So that's what's kind of created our overtime. And the request I have in, I believe, especially the way we're trending, that'll carry us through definitely till, through into January. So I kind of tried to factor that in because I know last year we ran into the same thing. We wanted to not worry about like the holidays and Christmas, and I don't know what the council schedule is during that time. So I wanted to make sure that I would be back once I wouldn't have to come back or rethink about overtime until after the first of the year.
Chief, just a couple questions. The budget, if I remember, was for, the ordinance is for 94 police officers, but the budget was for 88?
Oh, the budget was for 92.
92.
We currently have 88, but 8 of those are in the police academy currently. Well, 2 are graduating tonight, but have been in the police academy since July 1st. So, and then with the injured on duty as well.
And so you're at 88?
The budget was for 92 and we're at 88 currently.
Okay, is there anyone in the academy after the 2 graduates tonight?
Yes, 6 more.
6 more.
But that's included in the 88.
And how many family medical leaves are out?
They're currently back down, but they were out at the same time as this surge of the injured on duty.
Okay. And family medical leave could be a variety of reasons that they qualify for. Could be
Correct.
someone else in the family sick, could be a spouse, a child.
Yes, and that's officers using their own time, but they just, it's an extended period of time usually, so it's, permission to use that time to take care of a family member or themselves if it's themselves.
Okay. Chief, you and I talked, and the chief from the fire department is up next. Injured on duty is, I know we're getting some reports coming out of both departments, but can you walk through, not just our new counselors, but walk through all of us and anybody who's listening out in our audience and on TV, you know, how an injured on, what an individual, say this weekend, comes to the station, is injured on duty, what happens, how it's vetted, how it's investigated, and how many short-term, long-term are we looking at with these numbers?
Okay, so when an officer gets injured, if they're able, they do a report, as well as a supervisor does a report of the incident itself. The officer, if it's after hours, will go to the emergency room, and then the next available day would go to the work connection. If it's during hours that the work connection is open, they go to the work connection. They're seen there by medical personnel, which then provides us with, for lack of a better word, a diagnosis of what's wrong with them and what the prognosis is or for return. And usually there's a standard form that comes from the work connection that will say, no work or modified work or whatever the deal is, and then a next appointment date, which usually, depending on, some of it we can kind of gauge if we know what's wrong with the person. You can see that, oh, okay, he's going back in a week. He'll probably be back then. If it's something more serious, you can kind of know that as well. But there's usually, even if somebody is going to be out long term, they have like constant checkups with the work connection as far as being seen and evaluated. A lot of times once they go to the work connection, depending on what's wrong with them, they will be referred out to a specialist. Like an example would be like a broken arm or something like that. They might be referred out to an orthopedic specialist who would fix that and then refer them back to the work connection with the diagnosis, and then the work connection updates us. So the work connection is kind of the way out and the way back in. That's kind of how it works. And they do at times when the officer starts to make his way back and can come back light duty, then they will put those restrictions on, and we have certain duties here that are considered light duty, and we bring the officer back to work light duty first, and then eventually to full duty.
And there's a contractual obligation that they have to go to the work connection, or is that a policy of the police department, or both?
It's a policy of the city, really. I believe that's all city employees, but definitely here.
And if someone is out long-term, what's an investigation entail of?
Well, there's not really an investigation. That really just comes down to the doctors. I mean, there is we do have Metatrol, which kind of takes all the doctor's notes and all the information coming in, and then they, along with the doctors, develop basically a prognosis and a path back. If it gets to the point where the doctors are saying they can't come back to work, then the process would obviously begin to separate that officer with like a disability retirement.
Councilor Jordan.
So, staying with the injured on duty, so you said, just to fill in a few of the gaps here, the officer does their own report, and by the way, do you guys have your own report, or do you have a standard report that the city gave you for your department?
No, we have our own form that we do, and they actually bring that form with them. There's a portion of that gets filled out by the doctor. So, and they do we do an incident report, like a regular police incident report. And the supervisor investigates, what happened and when. Most of ours, occur during a call or during arrest or during you know what I mean? So that's a lot of the investigation, is just the other people that were there, talking to the other officers. If the supervisor wasn't on scene, talk to the other officers that were there, or other witnesses that may have been there that witnessed the officer, you know, say he fell down some stairs, or, yeah, I was here, I saw him, he fell down the stairs. And, you know, the supervisor will investigate that and put that into the report as part of the overall file. And then as far as medically, that, you know, obviously we don't deal with that. We leave that to the work connection and the doctors.
So obviously it's helpful when there's witnesses. How do you investigate the unattended if there's no witnesses? What does the supervisor just take the employee's
Well, you
statement?
take a statement from the officer, and I mean, it has to be work related. So, I mean, it's hard to, I'm trying to think of a time when somebody wasn't present, and there's usually an incident tied to the injury. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, well,
a lot of time there are, I think a rare thing that a guy would walk in and say, yeah, I was hurt, but there's no incident or nothing to tell you about. I just can't recall that happening.
No, I'm talking about if someone's driving a police car, they're typically by themselves. They get out of the car for whatever reason. They're the only person there, and God forbid they trip and fall down over a curb, and they say, I hurt my leg, or I hurt my back, or whatever type of situation, you know.
Well, then the supervisor would go to that scene. The officer would probably tell him or show him what happened, and we would do our best evaluation to see if that is feasible or not.
All right.
Yeah, and then, you know, obviously when the doctor sees him, is that consistent with what was reported? You know, doctors can tell sometimes from the nature of the injury that there's no way, you know, you hurt your back of your leg when you tripped on a curb. You know, I don't know. I'm just speculating, but
right.
The doctor, you know, then that might become a little more involved with the doctor saying there's no way he hurt his leg doing that. You know,
all right. So
you can only report what's reported, and I don't recall too many, if any, that are reported without some type of sort of witnesses or an incident that took place that's easy to kind of quantify what the officer's reporting to you. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like if you were in a car accident, say, oh, I hit this pole, and you're standing there's the pole, and there's the car, and there's some paint on the pole. You know what I mean? Like, our supervisors will go and sort of vet that to see what the officer is telling them is actually what happened.
Okay.
But the vast majority of our injured on duties happen during an incident where there's other officers and other witnesses, and it's very easy to kind of figure out what happened.
Right. Is there anybody who, besides the supervisor, who, you know, is it Metatrol, or is there anybody independently reviewing all the paperwork of your department, and for that matter, the other departments, that look to make sure that, you know, this, you know, they review the medical and the supervisory reports and all these other reports?
Yeah, well, internally, besides our supervisor, that goes up the chain of command to another supervisor, ultimately to my office. So we sort of all sign off on it here.
Okay.
And then, you know, obviously the doctors do what they do, and then Metatrol sort of reviews everything. Correct.
Okay. I don't want to go too much further into the questions on this, because we could go quite a while, and I know we have a separate item in finance on this, and I want to keep it as close as I can to the overtime, but of course this kind of feeds into why we have the overtime issue. I'll just ask one other question, because it goes totally off of the injuries themselves, but more to some statistics from you. One of the things that I did ask the chairman for is a report to support these ongoing appropriations. We need to get more detail as to what's going on with the running list about injuries in any of these departments. But, you know, how long are these people on, you know, let me ask you this. Of the people you have on there now, is there anybody on that's been on for greater than a year that we're paying? Yes. Anybody greater than 2 years?
Yes.
Anybody greater than 3 years?
Possible. I think there might be one.
Okay, so after 2 years of you can't work because you're quote unquote injured, so I've paid 2 years of your salary for no work. At what point is this, like, when do we cut bait on the point that you made earlier, which is, you know, this person's disabled, this person has some other, I mean, we pay all this money just forever. It doesn't.
Simple. It's very simple. When the doctors say they can no longer come back to work, if there's a path back, obviously for a lot of reasons we want to get that officer back because they've obviously already been trained. But sometimes it's not in the, you know, that it might sound like a long time, but you know, things happen in certain circumstances that stretch those out that are beyond the control of us or even the officer. Scheduling of surgeries or appointments. I don't know, you know, if you call a doctor these days, you'll see, we'll see you in March. We sometimes have no control over that. But what I would say is that, you know, the goal of injured on duty is to bring them back. If it becomes apparent that they cannot come back through doctor's appointments, which usually Metatrol is heavily involved in, then we move the other way towards figuring out the separation so that we can get an able-bodied officer in that spot. And that process is also sometimes time-consuming. So there's a lot of factors that go into it, but I would say generally, I think most times you see those happen within, if it's going to be a separation, probably within a couple of years.
Seems like an awfully long time to make that determination when you're into, you know, 2, 3 something years to have that type of evaluation. Meanwhile, the taxpayers are out, you know, how many hundreds of thousands of dollars for each one of these. That gets a little pricey. Obviously, we're going to be looking into all this to have a review process of how this all goes down. But I'm not sure we've ever had a comprehensive review of how all this goes down and have a standardized process. So, and I know the mayor is providing efforts to get a consultant to help us with that process. So that'll be certainly interesting to learn more. Chief, in terms of this 250, what's the impact of injured on duty as a portion of the 250? Is it half the problem? Is it a quarter of the problem? What's your estimation?
It's significant. I didn't really, you know, put that together specifically. Some of that's going to be hard to put a number on, but you know, how much of that 250? I don't know. How much of the money that's already been spent, been part of injured on duty? It's hard to say a set number. I really, it's significant though. I mean, it is a driving force of the overtime because no matter how you slice it, if someone is out, somehow, some way, we're backing up that work. The work doesn't change, and the call volume doesn't change. So I have to hire people when people are out, and sometimes even if they're not a replaced person, say a detective, well, I still might have to call a detective in to work that shift if that detective isn't there and we need detective. So I don't know a set percentage though. I just couldn't put a number on it, but I know it's definitely a driving force.
Well, I appreciate that, and you know, I believe I threw the number around of this is about $1 million a year problem. When I put that number together, I assumed 0 for overtime. So obviously, because I can't exactly say that, you know, the overtime was caused because of all these workplace injuries, you know, but I want to emphasize to the city leadership, and I know pretty much I'm preaching to the choir here because I think we all agree that it's something we need to look in and figure out. But quantitatively, I think we're starting to get our arms around the fact that this is a lot more expensive than we even realize. And a lot of the reason we have all this overtime is because we don't have the officers working. And you get 7 to 13 officers injured at a given time. I mean, that's a lot of people. So that all has to be backfilled with other people. So this is getting to be pricey. And I see Kelly's on the line. So, as soon as we can get our arms around this and begin to come up with solutions, we can become to get solutions. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any further discussion? On the transfer in front of us, the chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the transfer from Lieutenant Sergeant Patrolman to $250,000 for overtime.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to adopt and approve the transfer. Recommend that to the full city council next Tuesday. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Thank you, Chief. I think you're hanging around for the supplemental budget. We gotta
I am.
get to your counterpart though first.
Motion to take item number.
Before I leave, can I just add one last thing? I'm sorry.
As long as it's part of the agenda, yes.
It's about the overtime. I just want to make it clear that with this most recent payroll, I'm only going to have about $5,000 left in overtime after this. Before the 250 transfer.
Yeah, well,
Thank you. Yeah.
we approved it.
Just
So.
so you know that. Yeah, no, I know you approved it to the city council. I just thought it might be important for councilors to know that.
No, thank you. I thought you said that, but yes, gotcha.
Okay, thank you.
Motion to take item 9 off the table?
A second.
Item 9, introduce myself under my name for the mayor, is the request to transfer from firefighters $150,000 into the overtime account $150,000. Off the table for discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Welcome to our chief of the fire department, who I gotta say, your predecessor's name was so easy to pronounce, and we welcome. Chief, I'm gonna, it's gonna take me about, I don't got enough time to do this, Mayor, but Chief Kadowitz, how do I do?
Perfect.
All right. Welcome, Chief. Chief, I know you just heard your counterpart go through his overtime request. If you could walk us through your overtime request, the numbers and so forth. And Chief and I also talked today about injured on duty, which is, numbers are a little bit different than the police department nowadays, but.
Yes, right now, we've expended, we spent $325,000 already on overtime-ish. The reason being is we just had 7 people come back from the Mass Fire Academy, so that was 11 weeks that they were gone. We're finally on November 5th, which was Monday, we had 5 firefighters start. We began that hiring process in April, and that's how long it takes with civil service and the background checks and the consent decree and everything else. We still have 2 more that are in line to start. They weren't able to start with this group. One was military, so they weren't able to take the PAT with them, which is the physical ability test. And one we had to go back and hire after because we had someone in the process after the physical decided they didn't want to take the job. So we had to go back and get one more. As far as IOD, we only have 3 out on IOD right now.
I'll jump in for Kevin. Are they long-term, short-term?
The longest is about 6 months. The other 2 are very short-term at this point.
And your current overtime line item, is it depleted with that $325,000?
No, we have about $74,000 left in it.
Okay.
We just want to get ahead of it before we.
And do you know for pay period about how much you're spending on
I
overtime?
think right now we're averaging about 30,000. We're hoping that when we get these 5 online, we're doing a quick 4-week in-house. We're hoping to get them in the fire academy in March. There wasn't one available for that, but once we get them out, we're hoping that's really gonna help balance out the overtime.
Okay. So 7 came out of the academy?
Yes,
and-
they came out on, they graduated on October 28th.
And you still have 5 more there?
We have 5 more that literally just started the fire
Just started,
department on
okay.
Monday. And they're in our in-house training for the next 4 weeks. Well, 3 weeks actually now. For the next 3 weeks, then they'll come out and work on apparatus until there's academy slots for them. And at that point, we should be able to get the other 2 in the door and do an in-house and then get them back out.
The administrator just asked if you could lower the mic. They can't hear you. Thank you.
I can, sorry.
There you go. We can hear you here. It's everybody out in the
TV land.
out in TV land. All right, thank you. I just wanted to get the facts out, Chief. Questions, Councilor Jordan?
I had just a quick one, Chief, and
Yes,
that
sir.
is, so how is overtime trending versus, say, last year? Are we about the same, a
No,
little
we're
less?
definitely higher.
Higher,
We're
okay.
definitely higher.
What do you attribute that to?
I think that, and I think more people this year, and I think it has some, I don't want to speculate, but, people can actually go on vacation this year, so people have actually, instead of selling back time, have actually taken it. So that's with an increased use of vacation time and other things coming out of COVID, I believe.
Does the city factor that into our cost analysis, to the extent we ever do cost analysis around here, about when we do these buyback programs, that we factor not just the cost of the vacation when people buy it back, but when we have to backfill them when they don't buy it back, right? You know what I'm saying? So that,
I do.
So that we're properly valuing the buyback program, that it actually might save us some money to be a little more lucrative on the buyback because it's saving us on overtime. That might be a benefit actually to the employee who chooses to buy back time, because they're actually saving us the overtime effect of their absence.
Yeah.
Something you may want to consider as a benefit to your troops, that, maybe we need to, run the calculus on that, because that could be a benefit to them and a benefit to us.
Absolutely.
Something to consider.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Councilor Tomlin?
Yeah, thanks, Chief, for coming down. And on your first statement, you said you spent how much already in overtime? Is it 325?
325,000.
From when? From July?
July till now, yes.
Okay, and so that's much more than last year, of course, from July to...
Yes.
And you said attributes that to people taking time and
Well,
people out of the
that, yeah,
academy?
with the 7 people at the academy, the 7 people we're missing, we're down 14 right there.
Right.
The 3 that are IOD, we have a couple of extended sick things for different reasons, but are not work-related.
Okay. And now, how does it work? So the people at home know the schedule, is it 24 or how many hours straight?
It's 24 on, 24 off, 24 on, and then they're off for 5.
Okay. So in other words, in a pay period, they get their hour, was it 40?
It's a 42 average, based on the 8-week work cycle.
Okay. And you've been there a while, so has it, with that new schedule, has it seemed to overtime been down, or is it a little bit higher because of the other schedule was?
I think it's down, and you look at that, I mean, we've had pay increases, we've had everything else, but the overtime has kind of been hanging at the same numbers. So based on the fact that we're making more money, but that number is staying the same, but, so the overtime rate is going up, you'd have an assumption of it's staying somewhat, it's somewhat down. I'm sorry.
Okay. And the 150,000, that'll last till when, do you know? I mean, is
I'm
that an
hoping
estimate?
with getting people back, we can make that last for the rest of the year. I'm hoping that once we get these people back, it'll come kind of
Work it
settle
out.
down.
Settle down a little
Usually
bit.
once you get into January with us, that's a really quiet time, January, February. You get a little spike at St. Patrick's Day weekend traditionally, and then it won't pick up again until usually May into June, and then the summertime starts.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate it. Just to get an idea how that will go. And
I mean, this is definitely against the trend. We're down so many people because of the fire academy and the shortage of the firefighters that we've been trying to hire, that it's usually by now it's settled down off of the summer.
Yeah. Just one more quick question, and I know you budget for people to leave retirements. Do you have any idea how that will play into this for next year?
We didn't budget for any retirements this year that have been cut, and because of the people ended up going in June. We only had Yeah, they all went in June. So we ended up, after we cut, the city council cut those monies from the vacation day buyback and the sick time. We ended up not putting it back in the mayor's supplemental. We just left it out because the people ended up going last year and we had the money to cover it.
Okay, but I mean, technically, somebody within the next 6 months could retire, right?
Yes, yes. We should be able to find the money to cover those in the sick time and vacation time buybacks because people.
You have some money left in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's important to know too, because as we said, the buyback can be.
I mean, if we get some unforeseen, like 4 or 5, all of a sudden a good group of people goes to retire, you definitely won't be able to cover it, but we can probably cover 1 or 2 where we shouldn't have too much issue doing that.
Yeah, because again, and then you have to replace those. If you have 3 or 4 people out, you want to replace those.
Absolutely.
And have people in line for the academy because
especially because you can see where that process takes up to 6 months from civil service. We want to start that process as soon as we can. That's why we, whenever possible, ask for the notice with the retirement, just so we got to start planning ahead.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Chief.
Any further discussion? Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the transfer?
Second.
Motion made second to adopt the transfer. I recommend that to the full city council next Tuesday. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? So moved. Chief, thank you, and thank you for your patience.
Thank you very much. I appreciate everything you guys do.
Take care. Have a good night.
You too.
I believe if the committee is willing, we can take 10 and 11 together as a package?
Yes, take items 10 and 11.
Motion made second to take up 10 and 11 as a package. Item 10, introduced under my name from the mayor, is requested transfer from the Sewer Enterprise Stabilization Fund, $293,000, Capital Stabilization, $109,000, totaling $402,000 to Sewer Professional Services. Item 11 is from the Cannabis Impact Stabilization Fund, $402,000 into Sewer Professional Services. Off the table for discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. The chair welcomes with us all evening Mayor Garcia, the chair of the DPW Commission, Mary Monahan, and our city engineer, what's your last name? Baker, I'm sorry.
Just remember the governor, right?
That's it, well, former governor.
Well, he's not former yet. Not former yet.
Still the governor.
2 more months.
Very good one, too.
I had to get one Republican to do a little editorial comment there,
There you go.
Who'd like to take the lead? And Roy, did you want to come in? You don't have to be out there by yourself. And Tanya, I know you like that table.
Yeah. We're good?
Okay. Who'd like to take the lead? Okay, the chair of the DPW Commission, Mary Monahan.
Get the mic.
are on? Thank you.
That works?
Yeah.
There you go.
There we
There you
go. Okay. So again, thank you. I'm Mary Monahan, Chair of the Board of Public Works. So we're here tonight asking for $402,000 as a transfer. Those 2 options for the transfer are, the second one is in response to a previous conversation I had with Councilor Jordan, who asked about the potential of the cannabis funds being used. But that's going to be, your committee's decision and or the full council. So the timing of this is in response to the anticipated consent decree that's coming. That handout outlines some of the, complex nature of this request, the opportunity for it to address a number of things within the city's water and wastewater and stormwater infrastructure. Some of the anticipated regulations that are going to be coming down the pike, some of the costs associated with moving forward with the consent decree, which include not just the CSOs, but the stormwater regulations, the MS4. And it also recognizes the fact, and it's quite timely, that the service agreement currently with Veolia with the operation of the wastewater treatment plant will be concluding in the next 3 years or less. And the city will be probably going out for another 20-year RFQ for those same services. So we're at a point where we had already started through hiring a consultant to look at the existing agreement, look at what we need moving forward, and this folds in quite nicely with all of that information, data gathering we're getting. If we're going to contract out for 20 years of service, we want to know what we're going to need in those 20 years. We also want to put put in place that plan that's going to address that consent decree that will be coming probably within the next 30 days. So to do that, we're asking for $402,000 to do what's known as an integrated plan. Chris and I worked on this. We put the highlights of what an integrated plan does into that handout we gave you. It will end up giving us a full picture of the city's needs with respect to wastewater and stormwater. It'll contribute greatly to the development of a capital improvement plan. It's going to reduce budget surprises. I remember talking to a city councilor once who noted that things coming from DPW always seem to be a crisis. This will allow for a plan. We'll know what we need moving forward. It will involve a lot of public engagement. And that's something that I think needs to occur. I think the ratepayers and the taxpayers should be part of the process in determining what their priorities might be. And it will also allow us to look at infrastructure within the context of not just regulatory requirements, but how does infrastructure support economic development? So where might our infrastructure needs be that are currently getting in the way of economic development because it's not at capacity? And also another big component of this is environmental justice communities. When you have infrastructure that fails to work, it's generally in sections of a community that are older in nature, probably have a higher population of economically challenged residents, and this will help take into consideration in that prioritization where those EJ communities are. So when Chris and I talked about how we would present, I'm looking at the overall picture, and Chris is here to respond to the technical needs of the project.
Thank you, Mary. Want to do questions, or you want to?
Unless there's I'll wait, obviously.
Yeah, we figured we could just answer your questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can go right to questions and answers, okay, Mayor? All right, Councilor Jordan.
Okay, thank you. So obviously, first of all, kudos to all three of you for coming and continue to stay on top of this important issue. You know, we want to make sure that we're moving the city forward, doing the right thing, and that we are people of our word, that when we say we're going to do things, we actually do them, right? That's integrity. So that's important, and we want people who are monitoring us, and obviously sometimes we get to know that they're monitoring us a little more closely than we maybe care to believe or think they are. So there's a certain feel of a day of reckoning of some of this, and that's a component to this. So I'm glad that we're being very responsive and professional, and you certainly are all of that. So what I do want to understand, we have a lot of moving parts, and I want us to be very clear for the committee and the council generally, and for those who listen to our important meetings here, what exactly are all the moving parts that we have, and what are sort of the dollars that we're assigning to those. So in doing that, we have the integrated plan. The integrated plan is going to help us address, if I understand correctly, the pending consent decree issues and the long-term service agreement ending in 2025, so that in the aggregate, the two of those, it's $402,000 is what is needed.
So I can jump in and talk a little bit about this. So the integrated plan is really to look at, we essentially don't really have a capital plan. Mm-hmm. We have a long-term control plan that's just for CSOs. Mm-hmm. We have the wastewater treatment plant and that contract. And we did capital upgrades at the beginning of that contract, but we don't really know what we want to wrap into the next one or try and go after SRF funding for, or how to fund additional capital upgrades needed in the future. So this plan is really going to be the overarching umbrella plan that we need, and some of the other things are things that are currently siloed under that. So this is really bringing everything together, and it's also looking at the financial capabilities of the city. We have the option to wrap in also water infrastructure into this. So this is looking at flood control. It's looking at our collection system, which has not happened yet. It's taking into consideration we have aging sewer pumping stations. That is not something that's being looked at in other places. So I think some of the things that we've brought to your attention previously, such as the MS4 issues, the long-term control plans, Those are plans that are really deep dives into what needs to happen, and this is kind of taking all of that existing information and wrapping it into one large capital plan. And as part of this, which is I think useful to the city, is they do a financial capability analysis for the city. And so looking at the long term, they actually run multiple optimizations on different capital improvements and really what's the best for the city. And that's sort of what Mary was talking about, bringing in input from the city and, you know, people in the city such as yourselves as to what is important to the city to go into that optimization model, so then we can come up with some different scenarios and what it is going to cost the city in this long term, instead of, you know, I think, we've you know, been sort of reactive in some of the capital things, that things are breaking or there's sinkholes opening up, instead of really, you know, looking at
holistically. Right.
Holistically, yeah, and I think it's really important, especially as we, come to think about the rates and what we are paying, and does it make sense financially for us to wrap some of these capital upgrades into a new contract, or does it make sense for us to bond on our own?
Right.
And so that these types of questions will be answered through a plan like this.
Okay. So is the cost, and we had talked about the cost associated with, because I want to understand what the 402 includes. Does this include the cost to evaluate the current contract?
No.
Okay.
It's basically, that is a separate cost, but all that will be, those documents will be considered in this project as well.
That current evaluation is happening now.
Right. And how much again did we earmark for that?
152, I believe.
Yeah, 151.
Yeah, 152.
All right. So I just want us to make sure that we got, okay, so we're 402 for this, we're 152 for the contract evaluation, and that's legal representation, we think is in that, the financial analysis, I believe we've got somebody retained to do the financial
That's
analysis.
a separate contract, the financial analysis.
From the 152.
In addition to the 152, there's a $33,000 contract.
Okay, so I got to put that in the ledger here.
That's a financial analysis that's looking, we're starting with a 5-year look back. It's a complicated service fee arrangement. So it's beginning with looking at the billings of the last 5 years.
Okay.
Auditing them for accuracy and appropriateness for any sort of changes that may or may not have happened.
Right.
And then the contract also includes looking at costs and the impact on the user with respect to the service agreement currently and moving forward.
And in that, is it this person or the person that'll be funded with the 152 also making sure concerns around, were we getting everything we thought we were getting with the contract?
That's the existing contract right now for the 152.
Okay.
They are strictly looking at that agreement, because that agreement between the city and Hazen occurred before the awareness of the consent decree coming.
I see.
So
we have to factor that into the
so it's opportune in the sense that the consent decree is driving this holistic approach looking at it, but it also is supporting the moving that current study forward with, we're looking forward now, instead of looking at whether or not we're in current compliance. Now we want to see, what do we want to do moving forward? So the city's going to have an opportunity to look at what, as Chris noted, what might we want to keep within a future service agreement contract, and what might we decide to take on our own.
Carve out, yeah.
Because in 2005, if my memory serves me right, there were significant capital improvements in that contract. We are likely facing additional significant capital improvements. Do we want those rolled into that contract, or is it financially better for us to take them on our own, and like Chris noted, SRF and other loans to support those?
Right. What it might be helpful, and I can't speak for others on the committee, but I know it would certainly be helpful to me, is if you could really send us something that breaks down all these costs with a brief description to the side. $33,000 for the contractual financial analysis, $152 for the contract review process. Okay, so now let's walk through the 402. I'm assuming that's sort of a lot packed into the 402. So can you break us down a line item, if you will, of what are we getting for the 402 and sort of how is it composed?
Sure. So we have an example scope. I don't know if it's something you want to go through.
You can take it.
So essentially what they're going to do is, so they broke this scope into 10 different tasks.
Okay.
So they're basically going to go through a lot of our existing information, documents that we already have. I mean, obviously there's been some other studies done, assessments done on the assets that we do have. So looking at whatever we did have, compiling condition information, they're also going out to do condition assessments of our assets.
Is there a dollar, Chris, associated with these 10 points?
Yes, there is.
Okay. Could you get that to the committee, or is that something you're prepared? You have a handout to show us?
Well, I
we don't have a
the
handout for
copy of it.
everyone. But,
Okay. All right.
So
If that's something
You just wanna-
you
yeah,
could
take a look
email
at
to Jeff, our assistant, and then I think the membership would appreciate to see, the breakdown of where the 402 is going and for what.
absolutely.
Okay. I'm assuming that's on a page here somewhere. Oh, I see. Okay, here you go. At a minimum, this page, but I always like all the backup to it too. But let me just go through here. We have task 1, project manage. That's 68,000. Existing information and data review, 13,000. Feel free if you want to weigh in on any of these. Confirmation of existing conditions, 47,000. Permit and regulatory requirement assessment, 19,000. Alternatives analysis, 72,000. Integrated plan framework, 41,000. Financial capability analysis, 18,000. Public participation, 16,000. Project identification and ranking, 16,000. Scenario development, optimization, and implementation plan, 36,000. Draft and final report, 57,000. That totals out to 402. Okay. Yeah, I think this is kind of a really important document, especially as the chairman's going to read his report. He can tell everybody, where the 402 is going. You sort of touched on some of these, and do you want to hit some of the highlights and with this, or?
I mean, I think the overview that I gave is,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So now we have the 402, we have the 152, we have the 33. Anything else we're looking at?
There is one more thing, which is about 160,000 on the MS4, which brings us, we're not able to talk much about the consent decree, but it basically brings us into MS4 compliance and meets the conditions and dates that are set in the consent decree for the MS4 compliance through the end of next year.
And since you can't go into the consent decree, but tell the membership about some of what is comprised in MS4. What does that mean for the listening audience?
Yep, some of the things that they need to do in order to essentially fill the gaps and things that are in non-compliance in MS4 currently, and then to, the permit just continues. We're in year 5, so it's additional things that have to happen this year. So some of the things are, catchment mapping for the sewer sheds. There's dry weather screening. There's prioritization of outfalls. There's nitrogen source assessment. There is then wet weather screening. There's a whole IDDE plan, which is looking for illicit connections into the system. And then that gets us into then correcting them if they're found. There's reporting, there's it goes.
There's a lot to it.
It goes on.
Now, Chris, is there something coming our way on the 162? Because this is the 402.
Yep, actually, the 162 is monies that we already have in the professional sewer services fund. So we're going to utilize those funds for that, since it's kind of an urgent need based on the upcoming consent decree. So
understood. Now, can you send us the breakdown of what the
Absolutely.
what the 162 is?
Yep. So I have So essentially, it's based off of. So Kleinfelder gave us a gap analysis And from that, they're essentially filling that out with a scope of services. So I should have that.
Could I give these to our assistant to make,
Next
or,
week.
or
I can
you'll
forward
get
them
those for
emails.
us? Huh?
I want the ones that I highlighted back.
Here, let me give those back. Yeah.
But we'd be
Just
happy to
maybe,
forward,
could be margin notes in those, yeah.
Yep, I'd be happy to forward
Yep.
both of those
Yeah, those.
documents.
Thank you.
And I don't have the scope of services in hand yet, but I can get that to you when we get it.
Understood, okay. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay, so 33, 152,
Yep.
160, and 402. Other than that, what's this all among friends, right? So yeah, we're making some investments, and now this gets us to where you feel satisfied that we're going to make the DEP and the EPA and the DOJ sufficiently happy that we're serious about what we need to do. And meanwhile, on this other track, we're doing what we need to do as a fiduciary duty to evaluate the 2025 contract renewal, which decision needs to be made well before 2025 as to what we're doing there, and put us in a position that we can then have a proposal before us to understand what we need to do to give you for an investment for capital at that point.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're
Okay.
thinking about the next 20 years, and
Right.
trying to make sure that the city's has the financial capability to follow through with whatever capital plan we
Because
start on.
there'll be essentially two prongs to this. One side of it is the capital, hard infrastructure changes. And then the other side of it is going to be the operations side, right? That decision where we're going to make, whether it be with this vendor or a different vendor or whoever the case may be. Okay, good. All right. So, and you feel, what's the time frame to get this work done? Be it the 33, the 152, the 160, and now this 402. Do you have a timeline?
We don't have a timeline on the 402.
We do.
I don't, oh, you do?
Yeah, the RFQ does state they'll have it completed within 14 months of
14 months.
approval.
So I think it's all of these are basically by the end of next year.
Right,
And
because-
some of them sooner.
And their boots are already on the ground with the wastewater and the flood control operation because they're doing that existing assessment.
Okay. When do you feel, those of us in the know around here, when do you feel we'll have our arms around, we can have, even if it's, I would imagine this would be an executive session, but a debrief of what our financial experts for the 33 and the 152 on this contract saying, you know what, we've really looked at this. This is what we think you're getting. This is where we think this is going. Is this a 6 months from now type of thing? Do you think?
Yes.
Yes, about
Okay, good. So
Yes.
we'll look forward to a debrief with
Right.
you when that's ready.
And then if I were going to anticipate what the Board of Public Works might be looking for from the mayor and/or the city council is that's a big commitment, another 20-year contract. So what's the structure of the approach to that? Once we know what we're dealing with, once we know current conditions, once we know what's anticipated to happen over the next 20 years, how do we, as a city, is there a committee that gets put together that identifies what should be part of a new service agreement
Right.
or not? So those of you who were here in 2005, and I was on the periphery of that was a lot of work. And so
Yeah.
once we have this information, there's still a lot of work ahead of us.
Yeah. I won't rehash 2005. Those were.
Well, we've talked
that-
about the need to, unlike 2005, we're now going to be sitting across the table negotiating with global firms.
Right.
Right now, the wastewater operation under the service agreement, that's the largest, Veolia is the largest service provider of this kind in the world. So as the Board of Public Works, and I'm sure as the mayor, we're trying to put together a project team to sit across the table from whether it's a Veolia or another global player, the expertise needed in order to have those conversations and make sure that the city gets the best contract they can moving forward.
Thank you very much for coming.
Councilor Dahman.
I'll be a little bit briefer in this situation, but thanks for Councilor Jourdain for all those questions and get us to a point where I didn't know about the 33 and the 160 and 152, the costs that, you know, are really insignificant, but hopefully it's going to get to a place to where we look forward instead of saying, oh, this is going to break down. You know, now we're stuck. Where do you get the money from? And you talked about is it Violi? No, I mean, I've been with this since the contract started. I think we've had like 3 different firms there,
It's-
U.S. Water, Suez, and who is it now?
Veolia bought
Aquarian,
Suez,
yeah.
yeah.
And who's the latest?
Veolia bought Suez,
Okay. And where are they out of?
France.
Oh, they're out of France.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And was this recent?
In the
or?
last 6
In the wrong
months,
business.
probably, yeah.
Huh?
I don't think they've changed the name on the trucks yet.
Okay, so just recently, last 6
In
months
the last
or
6
so?
months, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I know.
Okay, and I think the contract thing is a great, at one time I says, well, why would we want to get out of the contract? But, I mean, to look at that now, to see, you know, what has been done over the years with that contract, you know, have they been following everything to the T? What can we do down the road if there has to be another, you know, vendor? I think that's important. I know it was a big cost, but that book is what, about 1,000 pages, Kevin? I don't know, that contract? And it's going to take some money, but I mean, I think it's important that we do that, our due diligence to look at that, and that it's important for the future of our city and all these steps we're taking, you know, so that we don't get hurt by the DEP or, you know, the EPA. It's important that we do this, you know, for the future of the safety of our, you know, our community and for the savings of our ratepayers, you know, what's going to cost. So I'm really grateful for the work that both of you put in for this project.
Mayor Garcia.
And I just wanted to remind the councils and for the folks that are watching at home that the strategy here put in play, that the flexibility they have currently to get this far is because of the support you provided. Remember, what's funding this, there was a retained earnings certified from the DOR out of the sewer enterprise of $593,000. And so we've transferred $300,000 of that to our team here at the DPW so that they can retain the experts needed to help navigate the next step. So, you know, as just to add to your compliments, you know, it's proactive planning, proactive investment to get to where we need to in order to navigate the next steps here as far as this contract's concerned, as well as the conversation at hand here regarding the CSO project. So just wanted to put that plug in there.
With the existing contract expiring in 2025, are there any early incentives for renewing that contract in the existing contract? Is that being looked at in this planning? So that'll be part of
There's
what
a 5-year option, yeah.
And those, if they are savings and if they make sense.
Right.
You'll be reporting that back to us. Before we get into the other part of what's in front of us, what option is better, where the 402 is coming from, are there any other discussion on?
No, that actually was my question.
Okay.
That's a great segue, because I was we've got option door number 10 and door number 11. Which one shall we pick?
11.
Mayor, you want to talk about that?
So I put together 2 funding strategies, so it allows you to have enough to.
Microphone.
Sorry about that. I put together 2
That's
funding
the Wizard of
strategies.
Oz yelling at you, you know?
Where did that come
Don't ask to see behind the curtain.
Where is that from? Where is he?
So that it allows you something to kind of deliberate a little and come to a consensus on what strategy you want to go forward with. So one option is split with 2 separate transfers that total up to the $402,000. Taking what's left in that source stabilization account and then supplementing the difference with what we have in our capital stabilization, or the second option being that we just pay for it using marijuana funds that are in the marijuana stabilization account. So those are the 2 options I put for you on the
Capital
table.
stabilization, is that the city's capital stabilization?
This is the capital stabilization line item that we created, that the city created. So whatever option you decide to go forward with, I mean, so we can hit our target objectives here.
I have a preference.
And when I say city, we're all city. You know, sewer
Yeah,
city,
city.
but
City.
it's an enterprise fund. So that just, I'm not saying I'm against it, it's just $109,000 would be coming from the city part, the city side of the budget itself, and not the ratepayer.
Right.
Councilor Jordan has a
Yeah.
preference, I guess.
I do. I mean, to me, door 11 looks great. The question I have on door 11 is it legal?
Right.
Okay, so that, as long as it's legal, I'm a double thumbs up to do 11, because this would be wonderful, and it would be great to preserve these other dollars.
It was, a conversation with Bissonnette that, obviously their opinions. So
Right.
I'm not an expert on
Attorney
the legal
Bissonnette.
matter, but I consult with legal and they give me the direction and I go forward.
Our assistant city solicitor is online
Oh,
here.
perfect.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Michael, are you still with us?
Hey,
Yes,
Mayor.
you are.
How you doing?
Absolutely.
His ears were ringing.
I think I know you've been listening. Would you like to weigh in on the possibility, or are there possibility or consequences with using cannabis impact stabilization dollars here?
I think as most of you know, that's a dispute that's been raised statewide about what you can use impact dollars for. The connection has to be, there must be some kind of a nexus between the use of the money and how it's impacted the community vis-a-vis the marijuana retailers, growers, or packagers. So with regard to this, I suggested to the mayor that it could be considered to be part of the infrastructure needs. Let's face it, those old mills that are generating most of the traffic and the 500 jobs are putting an enormous burden on the downtown IP district sewer system, all the way out to Main Street, where we're going to have to redo it. I think an appropriate argument can be made that this is part of the infrastructure improvements that the retailers and growers would like to see. Certainly, it's a need of the city, and it has resulted from the additional workers and visitors to the downtown because of cannabis.
I would think it's also safe to say that the cannabis industry is using a lot of water and also discharging a lot of water, and Mike, you just said that. Do we have those numbers, or can we get those numbers?
I'm sure we can.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it might be, I agree with Councilor Jordan, and I do feel a little uncomfortable about the $109,000 being from the city side of the budget and not from the rate users. It's all the same individuals, but it's the way the money comes in. But not against it. But if we can use cannabis, it might make a lot of sense. And I think there's a good argument there with what this industry is about. Because I know they use a lot of water. And that means there's got to be a lot of discharge too. And how much that impacts the wastewater treatment plant is what we have to, I think, hang our hat on.
And note too that it's more than just the wastewater, it's the stormwater, it's the flows from all that
exactly.
built infrastructure.
Thank you.
So yes,
Yep.
it's not
Yeah,
just
thank you.
the sewer.
We were warned about stormwater. I said this in executive session, a decade ago or more, and it's here. And we knew it was coming, and our planning may not have been the best, but it sounds like our planning is going to get much better.
Well, in fact, in 2004, there was a study done, 87% of all the flow that goes down is from street runoff. 87%, so that's 87% of all flow.
And there are issues too about flow, because we have water coming off of 91 that is unfunded mandate from the federal government. The federal government should be paying us for, because that water is not being, properly caught and properly directed. It comes into our system. And we have streams out there that comes into our systems, which the founding fathers knew what they were doing to a degree. But I don't think they could anticipate what the future brought, and the future is here.
I think we had someone raise their hand, Jennifer Kite.
Michael, anything else to add?
No, not with regard to the use of this for sewers. I think we'll have further discussions about impact fees as we get more instructions from the CCC going forward. The new law took effect yesterday. Many of its provisions will not be implemented until next September. So this is still part of, I guess, trying to fly the airplane while you're still building it, but that's where the state's at right now.
Okay. Thank you, Attorney Bissonnette. Michael, it's always helpful and a pleasure to listen to your knowledge in these areas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I saw Jennifer Kite had raised her hand at one point.
Okay, I think she's gone.
Oh, did she leave? Oh,
Let's see right there.
Okay, anybody online with their hands raised? We got a little laptop issue tonight.
I don't know if are they, yeah.
Okay, I think we're good for the moment. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
All right. If we're at the moment of decision, I'll vote to deny or send back to the auditor item 10 and make a motion to approve 11.
No, second it.
Okay, motion made and second that on item number 10, we will be returning it to the auditor. It's actually just a little bit logistically easier to do that way.
Okay.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And on item number 11, the motion is that we recommend the approval of the $402,000 for everything that was talked about this evening coming from the cannabis impact stabilization. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. One more item.
How much time do you have?
We're on overtime.
Well, there's a reason
Overtime.
there's a
City
reason the
council
chair put the
overtime.
supplemental budget last. A very good reason.
I don't know if you can afford me, though.
Yeah. The chair will entertain a motion, first of all. Thank
Make
you,
a
Mary.
motion.
Thank you,
Thank
Chris.
you, guys.
Appreciate it.
Motion to take item number 12 off the
Motion made
table.
and seconded to take item number 12 off the table for discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Item 12 is the last item for this evening, not the last item in the jacket, but it's the mayor's proposed supplemental budget for fiscal '23. For the record, this would be our second supplemental budget by a mayor. That might be the record for all supplemental budgets in the history of the city of Holyoke. But the approach Mayor Garcia has taken towards the budget has been very refreshing, and we look forward to a brief explanation of this budget. And it's actually, if I'm correct in saying this, Mayor, both with your communication and from talking to our auditor, there are plus and minuses in the budget that we have to take into consideration. So do you mind walking us through this, or Tanya, do you want to work with them?
Yeah, I will work with you. Go ahead, Mayor.
Well said.
I'll dive right in, but before I do, I do want to take full responsibility on the conversation you had earlier on the schools and the windows. I was reading back in my emails. I went over and consulted with Tanya. I was like, did we miss something? What's going on? And it was a miscommunication, or that's my fault.
You're not going to take full blame because as Councilor Jordan sit here and politely pointed out a couple things, I realized I missed that too.
I just can't sit back there and not say anything and allow people to be all confused.
No, I didn't do a little review myself, and I would have.
I thought you were just testing me.
I would have picked up the phone.
I was like, what am I missing here? And
Making sure I'm reading the paperwork.
There's a lot of blame to go around. That's okay.
But so in your packets, you have supporting documents of the proposed, what we've been calling the supplemental budget for FY23. The figures in there, they're based on current revenue expense projections to date and an understanding of what our municipal needs in this time of the fiscal year. Also in your packets is a brief narrative offering, bullet by bullet overview outlining what those proposed changes are, which results in adjustments in the areas that get us a little bit closer to our target objectives. The version of the budget concludes with an additional $124,911 to the overall budget from what was last presented, the first supplemental. Today's new surplus, we've estimated conservatively. We've made a note in our last communication that the surplus can be much higher than anticipated, and turns out that was true. So currently, the surplus is at $1,874,555, With the adjustments of the additional 124,000, you're now looking at about a $1,749,000 surplus left on the table, unappropriated. The budget remains balanced. Once again, does not propose any Prop 2.5 override or any reduction in services. Where there are proposed changes, either increases or decreases throughout, I believe the departments are still here on deck that can answer any of those questions. This is going to be the final submitted FY23 supplemental budget prior to you guys setting the new tax rate by calendar year end, which I think there's a hearing already scheduled.
Yep.
Correct?
22nd.
Yep.
There are still other union contracts to be negotiated. We're planning for, and the budget you approved to sustain changes as well as any other shortfalls of our obligations between the new budget you'll approve and the end of the fiscal year. We'll revisit later through transfers or at year end when we're balancing the budget. As I've also introduced a menu of capital transfers, which you've went over. Some of them are ready today, and I think by your next finance committee, you'll go over a few more. These transfers were identified in what is a very, very, very rough draft of collected information of what our capital needs are. When free cash does get certified and become available, which I think we might be able to do that soon, depending on how quickly we can close the books for 21. 21 is it, or 22? 21.
It's for 2022.
2022. I look forward to, continue to invest in that capital stabilization account so we can continue to plan for those large capital-related expenses and not have to bond for those, specifically like a new vehicle for the animal control officer and so forth. I do want to share with the council that we have already drafted. It's in draft form still. It's a living document, a 5-year forecasting model. I do hope that we can get this draft in front of you at one of your upcoming finance committee meetings for you guys to review. It is fluid. It's constantly being updated as more and more information becomes available. So Andrea, whom you guys met at the previous meetings, we hope to have her in front of you to go over that model. And my final note, I just want to share that November 15 will be 1 full year being the mayor here today, and it continues to be my greatest pleasure working with each of you. And just so that people know, watching at home, without the support of the council, it'll be difficult to get anything done. And I hope that I've been doing my best in trying to establish that strong relationship so we can navigate the needs of the city appropriately. So thank you in advance for your support and your guidance. I speak to many of you informally, one-on-one, and I do listen, and your guidance and support is very much certainly appreciated. However you do decide to offer support for this supplemental, just know that we will be sure to work within the limits of what you make available. And if you look at the document, you should be able to follow and see where decreases and increases are. And so if you have any questions about any of that, I don't know if you'll be able to accomplish that today. If you can, fantastic. But again, we're here to answer any questions you might have, if to the best that we can.
First of all, on behalf of this committee, but and I think I can speak for most of the city council, we thank you for your participation at this level. It's been since, I've told you this once, I've said this publicly, since Marty Dunn, and this is no, criticism of other mayors, but since Marty Dunn in East Chambers, there's been no mayor more present than Marty himself, and we thank you for that.
That's an honor.
Your approach to the budget is very refreshing. We get there sooner or later, but you're bringing us there later, and as we get there, I think the ongoing changes that are being made are important, and the way you've presented them is equally important to us, and appreciate it. And the finance team is just great. That auditor over there, she's no longer the new sheriff. She's been around too long. She's she's experienced. There's another new sheriff in the background there. not new to us, but, new to the treasurer's office. And we're not even going to ask him how that's going quite yet. We'll wait to the first of the year, Rory.
That's coming soon, too.
We're waiting for our first treasurer's report. Have to have you in.
But, all right, we got to, I was optimistic that we might be able to tackle this tonight, but I'm going to look at the committee and see what their thoughts are. The number is not staggering, that's for sure. And knowing where the minuses are and the pluses are is probably part of what we need to do before we feel comfortable.
Right.
What's the committee thinking?
Thinking probably table and take it up at our next meeting and have an opportunity to.
Okay.
Is there going to be something to us that kind of goes through me? If something's like, okay, 15 grand for ammunition, all right, I mean, you really don't need to tell me too much more about that. But if there is something in here that, 80,000 for land court expenses, like what's going on there? That's kind of higher than normal. If there's something out of
right now.
Right. But just kind of go through this, and if you want to send us an email that kind of gets into that, we might cut to the chase for the next meeting.
So I bulleted. I think you saw that, right?
You did bullet, but
doesn't
there's
go
no
into detail,
description
right.
as to the detail of why.
So and I guess we can do that, but just so you know, I did bullet it in detail. So number one, you know what the changes are in there, so that you can ask the questions, or we can write up a summary in an email, whatever, so that you have the information you need ahead of your meeting or at the meeting.
Yeah.
To help you make your decisions one way or another.
The bullets are great. So I could go down here and sit here and say 80 grand, Rory, why 80 grand for land? And I'm sure you'd give me a very intelligent answer. But I'm suggesting if we table this, we bring it up in our next finance meeting. Meanwhile, you could just give us maybe a 3-sentence description, shoot us all an email, and then when we come in, we've already read through, we could probably cut 30 minutes out of the next meeting, by reading your description. I mean, some of them are self-explanatory, but some of the other ones, it would be helpful. Like, why wasn't the original budget sufficient, right? Something changed, something unexpected. Just kind of go into a little bit of that, especially for the bigger ticket ones, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Any other thoughts from the committee? Time frame. Our next scheduled meeting, and this is again with available dates on that calendar in the room behind us. We're looking at November 30th. Is that something that's going to work?
When's your hearing?
What?
When's your?
Well, that's part of the reason. Here's, if you look, we meet next Tuesday, and then the week after is Thanksgiving. There's some wiggle room there, but not much. The tax classification is the 22nd? Yeah. Okay. So there's not much the following week. So the 30th is the week after, because there are meetings already scheduled on the 28th and 29th that have public hearings. So either the 30th or another Thursday night, I'll leave it to the committee. Our next city council meeting, which is a key meeting, is the 6th. Because the 6th will be the first meeting we can tackle tax classification with the hearing being done. So we need this supplemental budget finalized before we do the final vote on tax, if we so choose on tax classification, which we usually do.
Right. The 30th or the 1st, either one of those are good for me, depending on.
I'd rather keep it on the 30th if it's good for everybody.
I can do the 30th. That's a Wednesday, right?
It's a Wednesday.
Juan, is that good for you?
Whatever you guys want.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anya, that good for you?
Well, yeah, okay.
Okay. In this, I have a copy of, I don't know what it is. I only saw it here tonight for the first time. Tanya, did this come from you? It starts with the professional accountant.
Yes, that came from me, and it was just to show you that there was personal services lines where the mayor had cut the budget, and those are the calculations that I did, just showing that money is available at this time.
Oh, that or it's free cash coming up, right?
Not if you cut it.
Mayor. Keep the free cash.
That's for 2020,
I'm cutting
23.
You'll send us that?
I don't know, people were telling me to raise. I'm getting confused. They're saying raise the taxes. I'm like, no, we're cutting.
Raise the taxes. I
They
don't
want
know.
me to take
I haven't
what's
had
on
any
the
of those
table,
calls
save
ever.
it.
Okay. All right, so 30th,
30th.
we'll get a little, hopefully in advance, a little blurb, as Councilor Jordan said. I think what Councilor Jordan is saying, not with the little blurb, is the quickest way we can do this is, this is wonderful, because we need it.
Yeah.
But is a little line item supplemental budget, so we can go one at a time, go right through it.
Yeah.
And if anybody has questions, and I say this for all city councilors, if we can get those questions in advance, we can get those to the department heads before the 30th. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
All right. Think it's gonna work?
Yes, it will work. It will
All
work.
right. I love this committee.
Failure is not an option.
No, we'll work.
All right. Then the motion, that sounds like, is to lay it on the table.
Yep.
And all those in
moved.
favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody who spent a lot of time this evening. I told the mayor before we started that he hammered us. And Tanya, I can't download the meeting agenda for next Tuesday. Is there a lot of incoming stuff?
There's like a fair amount of stuff, probably like
Oh, well.
10 items. I can print it out for you if you like.
Wasn't too bad.
No, I'll when I walk out of this building, I'll be able to download it. I just can't
yes,
download it
get out
because
of
I'm
this
sitting in here.
building, yes.
All right, the 30th and the 1st, maybe.
I don't have one yet.
There's-
I gotta get one.
How
He's
much
got
has
one.
to be done before we set the tax rate?
I know, I gotta get one, yeah. This is your.
No, omni votes. We have
Everything's
to
on there.
vote on the supplemental budget, then can we vote
send
on
it
the
to you?
tax rate, or are there any transfers that we have to vote on before we set the tax rate?
No, this includes, the supplemental budget itself needs to be voted on because it includes
Yeah.
the state final numbers, the school budget, so that's what you want to do.
Okay. And do we need the superintendent receiver in for the supplemental budget?
Only if you want them to go through their final figures for the state.
Yeah. We have no line item control over it. We need to know it, but we can't control it. Okay. And a copy of that new projected recap sheet for, by the 30th?
I sent it.
It's not gonna change between now and the 30th?
The surplus is only going to get higher, if anything.
Wow. This is like language we never hear in this.
We don't
you
usually
know,
hear that,
you know,
yeah.
This is,
Boy, it should be easy on the
Yeah.
taxes this year, right? No increases, I hope, hopefully.
oh.
Very modest.
Very modest.
Well, we all know that, you know.
I mean,
property
Councilor
values-
McGivern's now got a millionaire's tax he has to deal with.
Property values have an impact on that as much as the budget. We have to, let's not send a confusing message out there. We're gonna work on those decreases.
Right.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We stand adjourned.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.